Hating the iPhone 6 is the new hating the Super Bowl champions. And if that's not a thing that people do, well, sorry, I don't get sports. Point is, Apple's new flagship just set a bevy of sales records again and seems poised to carry Apple through another successful year again. So why do people hate the iPhone so much? We'll touch on that before launching into the far more important discussion of just how these phones actually work in the real world, from our own experiences to the unfortunate souls who got the bends. We'll also talk Android flip phones and the Surface tablet that never was on episode 115 of the Pocketnow Weekly, the once-a-week podcast where we discuss news and opinion from the world of mobile technology, from smartphones to tablets to wearables, all the stuff you wished existed when you were a kid. From Boston, Massachusetts, where an iPhone is basically a passport. No, not that passport. I'm Michael Fisher. I'm joined by Chief News Editor Stephen Shank, who's tweeting more often than usual, and it's throwing me off. Welcome from New Jersey, sir.
You know, I am still not used to us talking about the bends in the context I know you're referring to, because my mind instantly went to Radiohead album first, and then Nitrogen Poisoning second. So third time I got there, but it took me a while. It was
those references are also kind of cool.
Okay.
I mean, you know. Also joining us from Pennsylvania, a member of the Pocketnow founding family and the great-granddaddy of this very podcast, Brandon Miniman. Welcome back to the show, sir.
Hey, you know, back in the day when this wasn't a video thing, I'd come in my underpants, plug in a mic, and it was just like, you know, just showing up for work as usual. But now everything's very official, and there are protocols, and you gotta wear a shirt with a collar and make sure your hair looks okay. So.
Yeah, but wait. What about that no underwear rule? Because this was not discussed with me.
I was just going to say, guys, we are chest up on this show. There's no reason for any sort of leg covering on the Pocketnow Weekly. Not everything has changed, Brandon. Guys, before we go any further, I want to say that this week's podcast is brought to you by Themer. It's a free launcher app you can get from Google Play that grants you access to hundreds of premium home screen themes because, as you might know, Android is the only mobile operating system that lets you change the home screen software, known as the launcher, and you can really make a work of art on your home screen that's beautiful and functional with a lot of icon packs, wallpapers, and, in short, a lot of work. But for those that don't have the time to make a pixel-perfect home screen, there's Themer. You browse the library of free themes, which contains minimal styles to productivity styles. You find one you like, you hit apply. Every icon, every widget, every setting is set up for you. It's a little like magic. Try it out. Just go to Google Play and search for Themer, Themer. Holy crap, we're on a podcast all of a sudden.
Woohoo! And it's Friday.
It's Friday, but it doesn't feel like Friday. I will tell you, this week has been hellish. Taylor Martin is not on the air, not because he wasn't planned, but he was so excited, Brandon. Taylor Martin is so sad that he's not here right now, but he sent me a message.
Not his internet bill again this week.
Yeah, even though he has done a 19.2 kilobits per second.
Woo!
Now he's too busy. We're all too busy because it's iPhone week, and I want to tell you guys, if you ever think for a second that you can take a breath during iPhone week, Brandon, you know this all too well, so do you, Stephen. You can't. You just cannot take a moment for yourself, because if you do, you will be lost the entire rest of the time. Everything will be behind. You will succumb to the chaos that is this device and everything that goes with it.
I have no idea when iOS 8.02 was out overnight. I don't know. It blindsided me.
Yeah. No.
It'll happen in a couple days or so, then bam, it's there as soon as I turn away from my computer. So thanks for the timing on that, Apple. That was really kind of you.
Really appreciate it.
They tried to keep expectations in check by saying it might be a few days when they actually meant 12 hours.
Yeah.
Half a day is a few days.
We're going to cover the 8.0.1/.2 issue, which is a sexy name for that entire topic. But as I look at the rundown here, I understand that Brandon Miniman has requested a thought thread. The very idea he came up with for the Pocketnow Weekly, he's requested his own thoughts. Poor Jules wasn't ready for this because I didn't give him enough notice, so he will keep up with us. But Brandon, I yield the floor to you and ask you what the hell we're going to be talking about for the next 10 minutes or so.
I'm curious.
I was cleaning out my drawers, recently moved offices, and I came across a phone that has just shut off because it's so terribly crappy. It's this phone. Name that phone.
Oh, Brandon Miniman holds up the Palm Pixie from
Palm
2010.
Pixie.
Oh, you
This
tweeted about this before.
this phone was released in actually 2009,
2009.
and
Wait, really? It was released alongside the Pre?
it was released September 2009, and
Oh,
it was
okay.
discontinued like 2 months later because no one wanted to buy it. The thing doesn't even have Wi-Fi.
The Pixie didn't have Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
I forgot about that completely.
Bad. It'll never catch on.
This was the second, listeners, the second WebOS device to launch. Yes, only a couple months after the Pre. And Brandon, there was a Pre Plus after, Pixie Plus rather afterwards.
There was.
Yeah, there was.
Which one was the
Verizon
slider?
Wireless. That was the Pre.
And then they had the
Possibly
Veer.
like the credit card sized one.
Yeah.
I love that guy.
The Veer, which I have right here. So,
Veer,
Brandon,
yeah.
why did you fire up the Pixie? My brother had one of these. He wouldn't call it a Pixie. He insisted on calling it by its code name, the EOS, because he thought that was manlier.
That is more manly, because this is not a manly phone. It's small. So I was flipping around, and the interface is terribly slow, and I can't even connect to the internet because it's not activated. There's no Wi-Fi. But I started to use it, just clicking around, and it felt so futuristic to me in the weirdest kind of way, and I don't know why. And that's really what I wanted to talk about. Why does this phone that's actually kind of crappy, but just feels so high-tech? What is it about this phone that feels high-tech?
I will tell you. Can you turn it around for a second, Brandon? On the back of the Pixie, as I recall, we're not going to get a high-res picture here, but the Pixie had kind of a stippled back cover that maybe was a forerunner of the S5's finish, right? Isn't there some texturing on the back there?
No, it's soft touch plastic.
Yeah, it's soft touch, but isn't there any kind of like? Doesn't it look like a golf course tiller went over it once or twice?
No, it's
Really?
completely smooth.
Yeah, shut down.
I think some of them had a stippled back cover. But anyway, why is this so futuristic? Well, I mean, this is why every time anybody gets fed up with me for being obsessed with WebOS for so long, and I can't blame you. It's been years. We should all get over things. That's the beauty of what WebOS was. It was so far ahead of its time, Brandon, I think, that you have no choice but to be bamboozled by it a little bit when you pick it up, and it's still so different from today's sea of mobile operating systems.
I wonder if it's that we're necessarily seeing things in WebOS that are futuristic because they're improvements of what we're doing now, or we're just not used to them. I mean, we were
different.
Yeah, especially because some of the things were picked up by the other platforms. We see the card-based, the multitasking. Isn't that what's coming to Android L, something along those lines?
Well, yeah, everybody's been doing the card-based multitasking thing, and it's funny you bring this up. I was just thinking about this the other day. Everyone does a variation of this with their multitasking. Android has the stacked cards already. The stacked ribbon of multitasking.
List of them, yeah.
In iOS, you've got the much more WebOS like side-by-side scrolling cards, and you even toss them up off the top of the screen to close them. And Windows Phone is the same thing, except you throw them downwards to close them. But all of these ignore, yeah, it's a nice little taste of what WebOS did offer at one point. But with the Pixie and the Pre, the task switcher was the center of the experience, and I think that was the real futuristic thing. They took this thing that was decidedly unsexy, and like that no one ever really wanted to deal with. It was like all right, what apps are running? Ugh, I got to go in and close stuff, and made it the thing you have to interact with all the time, and that turned out to be a really, really cool way of interacting with your device.
And I think it blew away expectations, because I think when I guess Palm at the time came out with WebOS, people were thinking, is it going to be kind of like iPhone, or is it going to kind of be like Android, or a little bit like Windows Phone? It was completely different, and it was a complete rethinking of the mobile experience that made sense end to end.
Yeah, it's good. I've used this quote on the podcast before, but if any listeners out there, I think we have a larger audience than we did last time I said it. If any listeners remember who wrote this, I've been trying to find this quote for ages. Someone who was at the Palm launch event for the Pre and for WebOS said, it was a wonderful quote. It was like, the Pre did something on stage that hasn't really happened to me since the iPhone launched. It made my iPhone feel very old and outdated. Which was a really cool quote, and I found that to be true as well, because I went from the iPhone 3GS to the Palm Pre, I think. So yeah. Anyway, I'm stunned you still have a Pixie that's around, Brandon. What's the number one thing that you would bring to your modern device from the Pixie if you could? Would you want the cards interface on everything?
It's so weird, because when I said that the Pixie feels futuristic, I wasn't referring to the software, although I could, see how that might be kind of forward thinking. But it's the hardware. But it's strange because the hardware is so old school. It's got a physical keyboard, which no one wants. It has a small screen that no one wants.
Big old bezels as well.
Big old bezels. But, like, it doesn't make sense to me because I want a bigger phone, but I also want a smaller phone. But you can't have both.
True.
But to have
Captain Two phones can have both.
You could have, if you're Captain Two phones. But to hold in your hand a phone that feels like it doesn't even... It's so unsubstantial. It's such a refreshing feeling compared to everything else.
No, I know what I miss from the early days of smartphones when we were seeing this. They started off, like the candy bar form factors, but then there was this shrink ray that hit the market, and we had these the Razor when that came out, and so preposterously thin, and it's great. It felt really high tech, futuristic, having these. I mean, not nearly as advanced as smartphones are now, but just pretty, for the time, high-end pieces of technology in really, really compact form factors. That's part of what the science fiction dream of the future has always been. Now we're getting a lot more functionality out of these devices, but we've sort of, and to an extent, I think you're right, backed away from the impressive, the compact design, the idea you slip them anywhere, and no bend gate when you're dealing with something small like this.
And you know what I think it is, Stephen, with the Razor? It was you were holding in your hand something so small that it almost seemed impossible that it could do so much and be so small.
Yes.
Like when you're holding a Galaxy Note 3, you're like, of course it's got a quad-core chip and all this. It's friggin' huge, but when you have something so diminutive, it's like, how can this be possible?
It's very true. Yeah. I remember the first time, so I remember the Razor and, of course, everything like that, but I remember the first time I encountered technology that was exceedingly thin. And this was in 2005 or so when thin was really starting to be in large part thanks to the Razor. But another driving force was the first-gen iPod Nano. You guys remember that thing?
I never used the Nano.
That was it was like you remember going to the Apple store or wherever and you picked it up for the first time and it was so light it almost didn't exist in your hand.
I didn't believe it was real. No, I was at my girlfriend's house at the time and her sister had one and I was like in their computer room or something and I was like, oh, what is this? Holy crap! And I became instantly just enamored of this idea that something could be useful and actually quite elegant and also so impossibly thin that I think I was carrying a smartphone at the time. It was a Windows Mobile 5.0 big old pocket PC like from AudioVox or HTC but branded AudioVox, and I dumped it for not long after that. I dumped it for the Samsung A900, their Razr competitor, because I was just thin captivated me. It was like a switch. Man, it was cool. So I missed that too. And Stephen, you mentioned the Veer before. Yeah, I mean, I carried that thing around, and it was a surprisingly powerful little smartphone considering how tiny it was. My favorite thing about the Veer is that they managed to squeeze on that physical keyboard, Brandon, the same one as on the Pixie, except they shrunk it down by 25%. Yeah.
The Veer seemed like the best of both worlds, but there was something wrong with it. I think there were no apps for it at the time or something like that.
It was WebOS. There were never any apps for it.
You guys are going to get some of the same these feelings that we're having of being impressed by the size and the functionality we're getting out of them from smartwatches, because you take a Veer, you put some straps on it, that's just a clunky smartwatch.
Gee, the Veer is smaller than the Neptune Pine, right?
Yeah.
That's a good point. I think we will see a sort of a race to the tiniest in the smartwatch space. We're already seeing it. I think that's one of the big reasons we were praising Apple so much for the iWatch, or some of us were.
Not the iWatch.
The Apple Watch. Oh my God!
It's going to take so long to relearn.
And the Apple Watch is incredibly thick. I mean, I think it's thicker than the Moto 360, right?
I think so, but it's also got a significantly smaller footprint. I just realized I'm not wearing my 360. It's got a software update.
Surprised we don't see a big, not tanned patch on your wrist there.
Yeah, well, considering how overexposed I am, thanks to my awful camera.
Or just a grimy thing where you haven't washed yourself for 3 weeks now.
Like the dirt that goes around the Band-Aid when you've had it on there for a while. Yeah, gross. So anyway, go ahead, Brandon.
You know what I keep coming back to? I keep coming back to the Pebble. In fact, I've gone through this weird cycle where in the beginning my expectations were very high of the Pebble, and then I got it and I connected it to the iPhone at the time, and I'm like, this isn't that great. And then I went to Android Wear and I got 12, 15 hours of battery life, and all the other problems that are that's associated with Android Wear. And then I put the Pebble back on, and I'm like, this is how a watch should work. You don't have to think about it. It acts as a hub for your notifications, and who cares about the color screen? It's a watch. You have a phone at the same time. So I'm a huge Pebble enthusiast these days.
That's funny. Yeah, I'm glad. I mean, I still am as well. But the thing, with Android Wear's kind of reintroduction with the Moto 360, I've been sort of confined to that. But then again, I haven't been able to use any smartphone. My old Pebble, with the Pebble Steel that is out. Brandon, are you using the original or the Pebble Steel?
Steel.
Yeah, see, that if I had a Pebble Steel, I'd be using that right now with my iPhone, but I don't have the Steel. I've never had the Steel, so I can't put the original back on anymore. It feels so chintzy and ugh. And I loved it. Don't get me wrong; it's like my Kickstarter one. I was proud to be in the first batch of people to buy one, but I was like, man, it's too. When I've got a Moto 360 available, I'm not going to be wearing the first gen Pebble around. I need a Steel. Taylor Martin. I wonder. He's selling his. I should buy his. Anyway, we should talk about the iPhone because that's the big news of the week. And
yes,
I think 2/3 of us on the air have them. Brenda, do you have the Plus or the 6?
The 6.
Okay. All right. I want to put in a space here for Jules to put in some kind of sound effect in post-production because this is the Apple iPhone 6 preview. And this is going to be a lot of fun. Because we're supposed to have our review video up last night. Brandon, did you catch it when it went up?
The review video?
Yeah.
I didn't see it. I was actually looking at the channel today, and
it's not up anymore. It was up for
and the question there sort of implies something.
I see. I took it down.
It was up for a total of probably 14 minutes. And as most videos that go up these days, as is the case with most of them, it went up at 2 a.m. And I was exhausted, and I uploaded it, and I was very pleased that it was finally out of my hair. And instead, what happened was
copyrighted music or something. What happened?
No, it immediately had a like-dislike ratio of 2 to 1, which is way higher than the usual 1,000 to 1.
Haters will be haters.
Well, true. And I was like, okay, well, maybe it's the headline, because I chose a subhead for the iPhone 6 review that went like this: Apple plays catch-up and wins.
Man.
No, all right. So Stephen didn't react much at all. Stephen's still thinking about it, but Brandon immediately had a visceral anti-that reaction.
Not the most incendiary headline I've heard about the iPhone 6, but you were opening yourself up to some controversy there.
But I don't know that. I still don't get that. I don't get how that implies. I don't know. There are two ways of looking at a game, right? It's particularly a hypothetical game of catch-up. One is that you're playing against other people, which is, I think, what everybody else assumed. And the other is that you're playing against yourself. And maybe this is just me watching too much Star Trek and being on this self-improvement kick. But that's how I meant it. That's how I was phrasing it. I was like, no, it's playing catch-up. And look, instead of losing and not catching up at all, in fact, they won. And it's a wonderful, wonderful device. And we're going to talk about the device itself. But, Brandon, what do you think? Do you think it's a shitty headline?
Here's the problem. People like to be able to predict outcomes, and people that didn't like the iPhone all along probably thought to themselves, well, a bigger iPhone is going to suck just like a smaller iPhone. It doesn't matter how much bigger they go because other Android companies have made bigger phones all along and they're so much better, and it can't be true that an iPhone 6 or 6 Plus is better than an HTC One M8 or a Note 3. But
yeah, we'll get to that particular bit of fanboy psychology because I'm interested in that. I'm just like, so the headline annoyed a lot of people. So I was like,
I feel like there's this visceral feeling from a lot of these users that Apple, it does not play catch up. Apple goes at its own pace. It exists in a vacuum in the smartphone world, doing what it's going to do regardless. It's not copying anyone. It's getting inspired maybe and doing its Apple stuff.
Oh, that's funny. No, Stephen, not in our audience. I mean, you should know this from the comments. And our audience is like, Apple wins. Does Apple is superior in any way to my chosen platform of choice? It's no, F you and you're gone. But I didn't take the video down because of that. I would have weathered that storm. That was fine. I took the video down because I made a stupid mistake. I said you couldn't put folders in the dock, and you can put folders in the dock. Apple doesn't really make it obvious how to do that. You have to build a folder first, then drop it down there. But in any case, I didn't want that error to go live with it, so I took it down. I recut the show, and then by the time that was like 3 in the morning, I was like, I'll do it tomorrow. So
are you changing the subheadline?
I haven't decided yet. I think I could make it clearer, but I don't know how to do that yet. What do you think, Brandon?
What is your explanation for why
Because the implication, from what I saw in the comments in the brief window of time that the video was up, the implication was that the headline insinuated that the iPhone was better than now that Apple had redone it. That the iPhone was now better than other platforms, and I've never seen a comment thread take off so quickly on a video. And generally, this kind of stuff doesn't bother me, but this reflects a larger problem, I think, with people as they react to the iPhone. And I meant to mention this before, but in the Q&A, people, if you're watching this live, please weigh in on this. We'd like to hear your thoughts. I want to get to the bottom of this in 15 minutes or so. Why the hell is the hatred toward Apple, 1, so intense, 2, so persistent? It's been 7 years of this shit. And why is the discourse at such an unevolved level amongst a group of people who are ostensibly so smart as we smartphone fans? And I say ostensibly with a lot of weight to it. I don't know. Do you have a theory? Either of you gentlemen?
That's a really heavy question.
I don't know that a lot's changed in the past several years. Apple sort of emerged early as the guy to beat in the smartphone market, and yeah, Android has grown to take over on a global stage the majority of the smartphone share, but still, in the States, Apple's this huge force. For developers, Apple is the company that you're going to turn to first when releasing your apps. It's always been the person you have to beat. You have to one-up them, and I don't see that even with we've seen Android devices sort of leading on the hardware side, delivering some of these features first. It's still, we haven't been able to shake this idea of Apple as the guy we're up against, and I don't know that that's going to change so easily.
So yeah, is that what it is? It's just like an enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of thing. It is a unified opposition force. It is, it's an antagonist that everyone wants to stand in unity against.
It's not like there's a whole plot. Like Windows Phone, well, it's becoming more of a. It's getting away from it. It's becoming more of a one-horse, one-pony show.
One-trick pony.
One-trick ducky, yeah.
I'm mixing metaphors here. I'm almost sure of it. But Apple's easy. It's this monolithic company. It's generally been just one phone, and it's really easy to compare everything against one thing than a platform, even like BlackBerry. It's harder to say, oh, everything about BlackBerry is wrong, I hate it, because there's some variance between the devices. With Apple, it's simple. It's an easy argument to make if you don't want to think too much about it. So maybe that's what gives it a life to itself.
That's a solid point, Brandon. What do you think? Is there merit to that? You've been carrying an iPhone as your daily driver for years now, so I mean, you have some thoughts on this, no doubt.
Well, on and off. I go between the best Android and the newest iPhone. I think a lot of it has to do with people like to cheer for the underdog, but then when a company's winning, they tend to blow out of proportion any time they slip up, or they overly criticize the company until they start to fall. Every big company falls. Microsoft fell, Nokia fell, BlackBerry fell. If you look at every consumer electronics company, Sony fell, and you could argue that some of those companies are on their way back up now, but Apple hasn't fallen yet, and it's been a really long time. It's been 15 years.
Well, Apple already fell. I think Apple's in its reswing now.
Yeah, Apple.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm talking about in
mobile, right?
times. In modern times, in the last 10 or 15 years, they fell in the 80s or something, and
90s,
it's hard for people to justify this in their minds, and people just don't want the big guys to get bigger and bigger.
This is a good point. That's a solid point, Brandon. I think Tom Craig in the chat has a good point here. He says, I think the hatred is so high because of the way that Apple presents itself. It comes across as extremely smug or pretentious to a lot of people. Taylor's rant in the last weekly summed it up perfectly. By the way, I don't know if you guys know this. I don't remember podcasts from week to week. So if we talk about the same thing for a couple weeks in a row, I'm sorry.
Mail about that.
Yeah, there is a question in the mail. I know. But Tom, this is a good point, and this is the point I was going to raise, guys. You know, I remember being very put off by Apple's presentation of the first iPhone. I was struck dumb at first by how beautiful I thought it was and what a good idea the software was. But I was also chafing at Apple's decision to say, like, look, it's the real internet on your phone. Look at these features we're bringing for the first time. And meanwhile, as I've said before, I'm looking at my Windows Mobile smartphone being like, I've been able to freaking browse the web on my phone for years. What are you talking about?
Well, sorry, finish.
So it might be a question of presentation. I think we're seeing a lot in the Q&A now that is picking up. A lot of people are saying the same thing, like Apple's level of arrogance. We're seeing, pretension, all that kind of stuff. Go ahead, Steve.
I think the obvious answer, I can't believe I missed, and just sort of reminded by when we were saying this is Apple on its upswing here, this is just a continuation of the decades-old PC versus Mac argument. Where
that's a solid point.
Yeah, I mean, Apple was always, you can have the Windows days. It's clunky, it's a little maybe more flexible, whereas Apple is streamlined. Maybe you have less choices, but everything looks really nice, it's packaged nicely, and it's easy to use. And this is just the mobile version of that same argument. Do you want the easy, pretty, really well done, but somewhat limited system, or do you want the rougher around the edges, but with more variation and more options open to you?
Customizability.
Yeah, it's just the exact same fight with different names on it. Now instead of IBM, we're saying Android.
This is a solid point.
I think that's a good way of looking at it, because the people that use Mac and PC and iPhone and Android are two very different kinds of people. One side is kind of the rebel-y kind of, I like to do things my way, I'm not a conformist. And then the other side is I like everything to be set up for me, and I like it nice, and I don't mind doing what everyone else is doing as long as it's good. And those two kinds of people don't get along very well.
Actually, that's really true. Yeah. I can see it from both sides, certainly. Zachary Johnson, backing up what I said, I believe it's because the Apple community acts like they invented something that's already been invented. Now, this is an interesting thing because it's talking about the community and not the company. What, Brandon? Go ahead.
I was going to say they do this over and over again, where they bring out a feature or a design element and act like it's the first time it's ever happened, and everyone's like, well, this has been around for a very long time. Phones have been playing MP3s for a very long time. The mobile web has been here since 2001. But isn't it true that when Apple does something, they do it to a higher level of refinement? And maybe it's just because they can control the hardware, and so the processor is just right to take advantage of the...
Yeah, I think you're right, Brandon. They do do it better typically. But one of the things that is exacerbated by this kind of adversarial thinking is that when Apple screws up, like they screwed up with Maps, or like they screwed up with any number of other things, it's a 15 billion times bigger issue, because we are already in this mindset, if you're in this on one side of this argument, that, oh, bullshit, they're the enemy. Now it's time to blow this beyond all proportion and say, like, F you, Apple. See, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I've been saying all this time. Why is everybody still buying the iPhone? Because everyone has so much more invested in this fight than the average person.
Also, I think that speaks to how well Apple generally does things, that when it does slip up in a very obvious way, this is the rare ammunition that the detractors get. I mean, normally you can say, oh, I just don't like the way Apple's doing things, but that's because a difference of opinion. It's so rare that you see it just drop the ball that people have to run with it.
Yeah.
That's a good point. We're going to talk about a couple of those failings in a little bit. We'll continue to come back to this. There's people are bringing stuff up in the chat here. Joe Byer, Ben Shokat says Apple takes credit for things they haven't done. This is kind of that theme. I don't think we're going to get to any answers here tonight. All I'm saying is that this kind of discourse is hugely destructive. I've written 2 pieces on fanboyism at Pocketnow, one about Microsoft fanboys, the other one about just general stuff. But it's really nasty. And this is the first time I've reviewed a flagship iPhone, by the way. I was stuck with the 5C last year, because, Brandon, you did the 5S, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You didn't like the 5C so much.
Well, yeah, nobody cared anyway. Nobody cared about the 5C enough to, get in any fights with me. So and
they're not selling it anymore, so,
Right, yeah, unapologetically plastic turned out to be a bit of a misfire. there.
Short-lived iPhone 5C. We barely knew you.
Looking forward to getting rid of the 5C. But the difference, and now we can start talking about the iPhone 6 and things properly, because the difference this year for me is that the iPhone 6 is the first iPhone I would actually consider buying, or given a choice, I would probably choose the iPhone 6 over some other phones on the market. And that hasn't been the case in like 7 years. I talked about that in my comparison with the Galaxy S5.
So this is the first iPhone that you're really interested in, really, is what you're saying.
Sorry, yeah, I misspoke with the year count there. 6 years, because I had a 3GS, or I had a 3G, and I was interested in that.
So tell us why.
Because, well, I'll tell you why that's an absurd thing for me to say, first of all, because I don't like the design. I don't think that those plastic inlays are any good whatsoever.
Plastic inlays. So if it didn't have the plastic inlays, would you be okay with its design?
I'd still be no. Just looking at it, like, it looks like a first-gen iPhone, which I didn't think was very. I thought the concept was beautiful. I didn't think the physical embodiment was.
Here's what's a bigger 5S.
Yeah, if it looked like a bigger 5S, I loved the 5S.
The problem with the 5S is that chamfered edges has been copied and been done over and over again. It seems like the Galaxy Alpha is chamfered edges. It's Samsung's first chamfered edge. The Note 4 chamfered edge.
So is the only good thing about it that it was unique? If it's a good design, it's a good design, whether or not a lot of other people are doing it too.
Yeah, but I think when you bring something to the market and then popular, then other people kind of take that from you, then then it's time for you to go in a different direction, do it again. Now, I will say, I think it was a good decision. I really do. It's not as good looking. It's really not. But when you pick up the iPhone 6, it's like a sublime experience. It's
really amazing, the curved glass, and I think the next thing to copy is going to be that in 2015.
And some people have already done that. I mean, Nokia's been doing it for ages on their phones. They've been doing that curved glass into the polycarbonate. But the way Apple has made the curve omnipresent throughout the device is really impressive. And you hold the thing, and it's like it's big. The iPhone 6 is so big that when people see me on the street, they've asked me probably more than 4 or 5 times in a week. I've been asked by total strangers, "Is that the Plus?" Because they think, I'm like, no, dude, you should see that. Like, no, this is the Plus. It's the Plus is the size of my face. But the 6 doesn't feel in the hand like it is that big, and that's a huge achievement, because the One M8, which I love from HTC, feels every inch as big as it is.
I'm kind of surprised how big the 6 is, though. I went to an Apple store over the weekend to play with it, and I'm looking at it compared to my Nexus 5, and despite the smaller screen, it's taller than the Nexus 5.
It's those bezels on the top and the bottom.
Yeah.
The Nexus 5 is remarkable because the bezels on all sides are very thin.
Yeah, but the Nexus 5, when you pick it up, in my opinion, even if you have the black one, which I do, it doesn't. It's insubstantial. It's just kind of middle of the road.
The iPhone 6 is fantastically better built, and I probably love nothing more about it than the tactile response you get from those buttons. I don't have a lot of experience with iPhones, but I'm playing around with this guy. The lovely clickiness you get from everything. It's so well made, which is kind of ironic to say considering what we've heard about since, but I'm really impressed.
So, Brandon, am I right in saying that you bought a 6 for yourself?
Yes, 6.
How are you liking it so far? How are you finding it? Are you're coming from the 5S, so this is an experience none of us on the air have. So how are you liking it?
I am really I think it's really freaking nice. What amazes me is that the speed of the phone is such that it's funny because the 5 and then the 5S had like no hesitation, as you call it, Michael, one-to-one. Like you do something and it responds exactly after that. There's no lag or no delay. The iPhone 6 is even faster than that, and it's so strange because it almost feels like it's preempting what you're about to do. So the speed is amazing. The screen I just can't stop looking at, even though it's not. I can see pixels. I can. I can see
you can always see pixels. But yes.
It's just I'm really happy with it, and the camera doesn't seem to be that big of an improvement, but it's still, besides the Lumia 1020, the best camera that I can think of on a smartphone, and that really matters to me. And iOS 8 stuff is not that interesting. In fact, I'm very disappointed with third-party keyboards. I think on the last podcast I was on, I was talking about how excited I am about widgets in the widget thingy and third-party keyboards, but it's so funny because Apple's finally opened up the operating system, but it's terrible. It's very unreliable. It's very buggy. The widgets suck. They don't load some of the time. They look bad. The keyboards don't. Sometimes you'll open up an app and the keyboard you had selected reverts to another keyboard. It's not done very well. So the software, but the speed, the screen.
I want to like piggyback on your point about speed, Brennan, because I feel like we're at a point where you could say legitimately, and you could maybe have a good point, that everyone's speed is sort of the same. Everything is buttery smooth these days if you buy a high-end enough phone on whatever platform you're selecting. So it's not really about transitions so much. It's not really about waiting for a couple microseconds on a home button press or whatever. It's more about a consistent sense of speed across the entire experience. And with Apple, I think the place I noticed that the most is in third-party apps. When I load up Twitter, which I do hundreds of times a day on either Android or Windows phone, I'm always waiting a second for the app. The app loads, and then I'm waiting a second for the app to communicate with the network and talk to, okay, that's something about, oh, I have notifications. Okay, let me load those. Then I load the thing. I'm just waiting all the time. And before, that never bothered me. I used the iPhone 6 for 4 days, and you said, Brennan, it almost feels like it's preempting what you want to do. Yeah, it feels like it has loaded the Twitter app in the background, counted my notifications up, and queued up the ones that I want to see most before I even hit the button. So launching
it's not your imagination. That is happening. I think in iOS 7 they, like Windows has pre-fetch or super fetch where it anticipates what you're going to open. But there's a big weakness with the iPhone in terms of multitasking, which you might notice for some of the apps that you don't use as often. Because of the 1 GB of RAM, if you open one app, then open like 5 apps and go back to that one app, it has to reload. Whereas if you do the same thing on Android on a phone with 2 gigs of RAM, that doesn't happen. So this lack of RAM is becoming a problem if you use a lot of different apps. But I guess Apple assumes people are using 4 or 5 apps consistently, and it just needs to keep those in memory.
That's a very good
Some of our features that we ran this week, which we'll be talking about later, we had some issues with the multitasking on iOS 8 and sort of the feeling that it wasn't as smooth as it needed to be. So not everyone's in the same boat, apparently.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, no, I mean, which ones? Yeah, you're right. We'll talk about them later. I know Adam Lane ran a piece where he thought that reachability was an element of poor iOS design. Now, it's a good piece, but I don't agree with it. But it's quite a good piece. I think reachability is the great thing. Listeners, if you don't know, it's when you double tap the home button and it brings down the entire UI a half a page so that you can easily reach the back button, particularly on the Plus with a finger, because iOS still insists on putting the back button in the upper left, which is just asinine. What do you think about reachability, guys?
I was more excited for it because Samsung has this mode where you swipe your finger in and it makes a small little screen, which I never really found myself using anyway on the Note 3. And I thought this reachability thing was an honest-to-goodness solution to this problem of reaching your thumb up. But it's weird how it works, right? Because if you do it and then you tap a text field, it goes back up. If you do it and you wait too long, it goes back up. I mean, it works in a really weird way that doesn't seem logical to me.
Yeah. Go ahead, Stephen.
I don't like the idea of it. If you're going to have a large screen phone, embrace this idea. If you can't use it, I think Lane makes some good points. He's talking about how it's a hack, and instead of having an interface designed for one-handed use, it's trying to move things around so that you can still get by even though it's not optimized for the screen size. And that's a problem. I think it would make more sense to have buttons where they're all at the bottom there, already in reach of your finger. And
Sure.
it's like Apple's trying to have its cake and eat it too. And I don't know if we should blame the users for that as well. You have to learn to use a device that's bigger differently than you do a smaller device. Maybe you need to use 2 hands to interact with it, and really that's okay. But
It's not okay.
I think it is.
Michael, let me ask
that one-handed is the only way to use phones. It's untenable as we keep getting into larger and larger devices, unless you're going to have like this super dense selection of on-screen buttons right at the bottom there. Just
people
hold it in one
want the
hand.
optionality. People want the optionality because there's a lot of times when you can't use 2 hands for whatever reason. Michael, I haven't used the 6 Plus. It sounds like reachability is actually something you've kind of retrained your brain for, and you actually do use it, and it's helpful.
It's one of those things that happens that you notice when you're doing a review device, and you're like, wow, when I give up this review device and go back to something else, I'm really going to miss it hard. Yeah. On the 6 Plus especially, I mean, it's such a huge device that when you reach anywhere up, it's not even a question of reaching your thumb up to the top of the screen. It's a question of moving your thumb anywhere beyond the halfway mark on the screen.
Yeah.
Like there's an acre of space up there. So yeah, I'm going to miss reachability quite a lot when I go to a larger phone like I'll go back to the 1520 for a comparison. I'll go to the Note 4, of course, whenever that comes out. So it's like,
you got a stylus. It's like a finger extender.
Right, but here's the thing. One-handed usability is crucial. It's really important because I am always doing something else, and I'm not alone in that. I'm not the world's most active guy. Even I am usually doing something else. I don't have 100% of my resources, hand-wise, to devote to my phone, so I have to be able to use it when I'm doing something else.
Well, then, are we finding new solutions to this problem? Because we're seeing sort of the market-wide switch to larger devices is happening the same size that smartwatches are arriving. So is that going to be the one-hand, the quick and get your information solution?
Not unless people start buying them.
Well, this is the rub, sure.
But Stephen, I take your point well, because other OEMs have been trying to do this. We've had Samsung to a limited degree with its toolbox. You can move that around. Huawei has a floating orb with controls on it that you can put anywhere on the screen. On the Ascend Mate 7, which is even bigger than the Plus, I think. Or no, it's not. But yeah, the screen is. And so we have manufacturers who've tried to do this. The only one, Brandon, since you brought it up earlier in the show, the only one that I can think of that's done it really well, which I've said time and time again, I won't go into it again, is WebOS. They put everything within reach of the thumb down below, even though their phones were very small. So,
except for the Pre-3. Well, that was a 4-inch screen, right? So that was pretty...
Yeah, the Pre-3 was huge, but of course WebOS brought all the notification stuff down below. If you wanted to go back, you had the gesture area for that. So I just think it was a really bad idea for Apple to put the back button in the upper left in the first place. Of course, that's hindsight. They could never have predicted where phones would go in the future.
We won't need more than 640K of RAM.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
The back button in the upper left kind of makes sense, because if you look at a web browser, it has it in the upper left, and I think that's what they're trying to go off of. You know what's funny? This big screen phone thing, hopefully in 5 years won't be a problem, because we'll have convertible phones where you can have your 4-inch screen.
Like a pad phone or something?
No, not like that. Like something actually futuristic where it transforms perfectly from 4 inches to 5.5 inches.
Oh yeah, like one of those the scrolls that we're gonna have a flexible display. You pull out and make it as big as you want.
Yeah, okay, maybe that. I mean, maybe that's 20 years off.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the answer to all these problems, right? Because the reason people want a big screen is because it has a better viewing experience when you're kicking back, you're watching Netflix, you're looking, you're reading the New York Times or whatever. But at the same time, these devices need to be lifestyle devices that you can constantly refer to and be able to hold in one hand while cooking dinner or whatever. And the only true way to solve this is to have a device that can do both. And the pad phone is not even close.
So I meant to ask you earlier, you went with the 6. Why didn't you go with the 6 Plus? Was it just the size issue there, that you didn't think it would be as easy to use one-handed? Because it had the OIS. You mentioned how much you liked the camera on the 6. This would have been even better.
Yeah, well, I'll probably end up getting that too, because I spend all of my disposable income on phones, because that's
yes.
But I went with the 6 because my hands are kind of small, and I really value one-handed usability, and I've got an iPad mini, so I think the 6 Plus is really good for people that don't have a tablet too. Any big phone is good for someone that doesn't have a tablet.
I was talking with someone else about this in the Meet Space the other day, and she was saying that she couldn't find a reason anyone would want to buy a 6 Plus. And Brandon, I said exactly the same thing. If you don't want a tablet, if you don't want to do the separate investment of a smartphone and a tablet together, the 6 Plus is a really good option, or it will be a really good option. I'm not reviewing this phone, and I'm glad, because I would never have expected how differently I would feel about the 6 Plus versus the 6. I think the 6 Plus is kind of a mess. I think it shouldn't have launched yet.
It's kind of a mess also, don't forget, because apps haven't been updated, so you get these blown up pieces of crap. And it's going to take a while, because I think back to when app developers have had to transition for Apple devices. You went from the 3GS to the 4, so the high-res display. That happened kind of quickly. Then you had the 4S to the 5, where people wanted to see their app all go to the top and the bottom. That happened pretty quickly. But now it's going to be slower, because all of the apps work just fine. They just are a little bit big. And I think everyone knows that not as many people are buying the 6 Plus, so the problems, that's where the main problem is. But I think, Michael, once apps are updated for the 6 Plus, it won't be as good as an iPad where you get lots of 2-column views and everything seems optimized for a nice big canvas, but it's going to be better, maybe in 3 or 4 months.
I think you're right, and I guess it had to be on the market to allow for that, so they couldn't just be like, hey, start designing for this and we'll release it later. Like, that's not what you do. So I understand why it had to come out, and I'm glad to see Apple finally playing in this space that they've for so long kind of neglected on purpose, but it just feels unfinished. It feels like it's trying too hard, and frankly, it's not very comfortable. It's a big old device, and I said the same about the 1520. And Windows Phone also didn't take advantage of the big space as much, and neither does this. I don't know. If you're going to make a big screen, going back to what we said before about one-handed use, just as important is when you have two hands, maximizing that screen space with things like multi-window. And this
I
is
agree
one area
completely.
Samsung is just so far and away the best at.
I think you're trying to say that the 6 Plus feels half-assed, and I agree completely. That's what you mean.
More like the 6.5.
Ooh, it's like that 6 minus. What else? What are we missing about this, guys? You mentioned iOS before, Brandon, and I wanted to say that iOS 7 sort of confused me in a way. I liked its aesthetic, but I didn't know exactly where it was trying to go. I think iOS 8 has fixed a lot of the usability problems, and that's another thing I'll miss when I leave iOS for the Galaxy Alpha, which is the next thing I'm doing tomorrow. Yeah, I will miss the control center down below. I think it's so smart of Apple to have, yes, the freaking notification shit up top because everybody's doing it. Why not? But swiping up from the bottom to have system toggles and media controls and handy little tools. I mean, I think it's terrific. And I wish
they could do so much more with that.
Like what?
They could make it customizable, so you could say, I want these 4 apps down there, or I want these toggles, or I don't want those buttons, and I want it to take up this much, but this is iOS. You don't get choices.
Right.
So the thing with iOS that always gets me, and the reason I use an iPhone 50 or 60% of the year, is because my wife, all of my friends, and all of my family are using iPhones. And so what that means is that FaceTime, iMessage, Find My Friends, Find My iPhone, all of those features work really well, and they're extremely useful. My brother just had a baby, and we had an iMessage group chat exchanging pictures. I can track where my wife is. Don't tell her I said that.
We just got creepy.
There's just so many ways in which iOS works so well with other iOS devices, and you don't get that on Android. And I love Android for what makes Android awesome, but at the end of the day, I keep coming back to my iPhone because everyone in my life uses it, and it actually makes my life better to have all of these services work between us. And I can't be like, oh, wife, can you use Hangouts instead, because that way I can send you pictures and videos. She's like, are you? She won't. She doesn't care. She doesn't want to change her lifestyle because I want to use a Moto X or something. So.
Right, this makes sense, and actually, that's another point that I really liked about the iPhone, is that normally when I go to another platform, it's go to a Windows Phone, but the fact that I can go to iOS and not lose all of my Google integration is really nice. Although it is funny how spoiled you can get on Android if you exist within the Google ecosystem, and then suddenly you go over to the iPhone and you're like, okay, cool, I can download the Gmail app, but the Gmail app's kind of whatever. But let me use the Apple Mail app because that's really pretty and it's cool. And then you have to set it up because we use two-factor authentication. You have to set it up like an email account on a Windows mobile device in 2006. You're like, oh, what are my IMAP settings? I don't.
Or worse,
know.
You set up Gmail on the default email app in iOS, and you don't get push email. You have to do a pull every 15 minutes.
Oh God, right. And then
It's
Hangouts
disgusting.
is half broken and stuff. Yeah, right. So we're always going to have these platform issues, and every time I even try out iMessage, my texts are screwed up for weeks. So it's. Yeah, these are challenges.
You want to hear a little secret for the iMessage problem?
Yeah, don't use it, as I understand.
No. So if you put your SIM card in an iMessage or an Apple device, and you have this, and then you switch to an Android, and you have this problem where people are sending you messages, but they're going to message hell, or what do they call it?
Yeah, message purgatory. Yeah.
Yeah. What you do is you call Apple customer service. This takes literally 5 minutes, and you ask them to deregister your phone number from iMessage, and in like 30 seconds after that, it never happens again.
All right, thank you. Thank you on behalf of everyone who will benefit from that tip. Brandon, you can't be here for all of news, but I want to get into the bits of Apple news at the top of the rundown while you are still here, and then maybe we can find time to answer that one bit of listener mail I sent you. Jules, I'm going to ask you if it is possible to sound the bell for news, if you have it.
I have a question. Was the bell sounded?
Yes, go ahead.
If the bell...
Yeah, start the ticker tape parade. Yeah, go ahead, Brandon.
What are the rules here? If the bell has sounded, does that mean I can't go on another tangent that I was about to go on, or?
Whatever you want. This is an informal program. Yeah, you're the granddaddy.
Okay, don't worry. There's no role playing here. I just want to talk for 2 minutes about the Moto X. Can we do that?
You want to talk about the Moto X?
Yeah, I know you guys have probably talked about it a lot.
No, I mean, I'm happy to take a break from Apple for a second. I'm sure everybody else is too. Let's talk about the Moto X.
So just like everyone else in the world that likes good things, I loved the original Moto X, but the camera sucked. And I have not seen the full review yet, but I'd like to know if this is going to be a device that you kind of default back to.
Personally, me?
Yeah.
I already bought it. I'm waiting for them to build it, which, would not have happened back when we had a frickin' factory here in the States.
Where are they making them now? Do we know?
Who knows? Somewhere else, and that's fine. Too far away. Also, I think the demand was pretty high, so I think that's probably... So, yeah, Brandon, I already ordered one, but I'm not looking forward to its arrival with the sort of anticipation that I did the first one.
Well, I mean, that was neat for being the first to do that super customizable. Well, did you get it when Moto Maker was available, or did you just get one of the...
Yeah, I got the review device, and then I got a different Moto Maker one, but that was a review unit, so I gave that up, and then I just bought my own. So I got 2 Moto Maker ones and 1 regular one.
Didn't Taylor make like 5 or 6 different ones? Every time the price went down, he bought another.
That week you could preview them for a penny.
Yeah. Well, the Moto X the original Moto X was special, and Stephen, you make a point. It's the first time it was offered in a customizable form, but it was also when Motorola decided, hey, we're going to buck this trend. We're not going to be like Apple and actively, stubbornly refuse to upgrade. We've already made big phones. We're going to take a step back, make a smaller one, because we want you to be able to use a more pocketable, more one-hand controllable device. And they've backtracked on that, and that sucks. I like the 5.2-inch screen, as I said in the review. It's handy for some things, but it doesn't have the personality that the first one did.
Yeah, and like Brandon was asking, it seems, talking to you on these weeklies going back months and months now, you're always talking about returning to the Moto X after you're done with the latest review device.
Yeah.
Does it no longer have that special place, do you think?
I think it will, because I think the features on the Moto X outweigh its physical transformation. First of all, the hardware is good. The aluminum ring around the sides is great. The dimple is hideously oversized, but at least I still know where to put my finger. It's and it's shut up. And it still does all the things in the physical world that I'm like, okay, whatever. I like this still. And also, I'm looking forward to the leatherback version.
I was going to ask, what did you go with?
What did you go with?
Royal, navy blue leather with metallic blue trim.
Oh, fancy. What color front?
The front is black, because the white front on a phone... I'm not going to buy a white-fronted phone until they figure out how to hide all those ports, because I'm not trying to carry around a piece of Swiss cheese. What color iPhone did you go with, Brandon, while we're talking about colors?
I went with the space gray.
Nice, yeah. I mean, good times.
Hey, let me put a nice thought in your mind. Moto X plus Android L, because no one's going to buy the Nexus 6 if the screen's 5.92 inches.
Oh, Christ.
So I think that the Moto X, once it has Android L, especially if they can improve the camera a little bit with the software, I think it's going to be the phone of next year.
Often, verbose commenter Pablo Maldonado, who we always love hearing from, just asked a similar question about the Nexus 5.9. Why all the hate for the leaked Moto Nexus 5.9? Your thoughts on having a large phone as a daily driver? Yeah, I've said frequently that if you're going to do 6 inches, make something about the phone ameliorate that display size. The G Flex does it well. I still don't think a lot of people will ever buy a phone like the G Flex for a lot of different reasons, but at least the curve made you forget that the phone was so damn huge some of the time.
Yeah.
No one else wants something this big. You know, competing on size is one thing. Competing on size to the point of absurdity is just stupid. So at least the Moto X has not crossed that line yet. But yeah, Brandon, I'm looking forward to it with Android L. I don't know about those cards and stuff, but you know, we'll see. When is that due? Yeah, the new multitasking interface.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like WebOS. It looks like a weird Rolodex that I would rather not use. But
yeah, it's going to be sweet. Puts your Chrome tabs into the multitask UI. It's going to be the way
we have to use Chrome.
Chrome looks good lately.
On mobile,
the flat design.
Yeah, it looks all right.
Mobile.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'll have more thoughts when my actual Moto X comes in. Maybe if it's a slow week, we will. I'll do another video of like here's my custom Moto X. But I think I'm the only one who ordered one. I don't think Taylor ordered one. So that's sad.
The camera. It's funny because it's
the Moto X.
It's always weird because if you look at a review, you see like the best of the best, and hopefully the reviewer puts some not so good ones in there. But the samples on your X review are pretty good. Low light's not amazing, but
well, no, low light is very bad. Low light's worse than it was last year on the Moto X because they're not using the clear pixel technology, which was itself not very good low light, but it was better than this more conventional sensor. Really, I think it's a software optimization problem when it comes to Motorola, and they need to fix that problem.
So they could get better.
Yeah, but you know what? To be honest, man, I don't think they need to. I think if they're gonna fix it, they're gonna fix it because of reviewers. Because when we did, people are probably tired of hearing me bring this up, but when we did that first volume of the Guess Which Smartphone Took These Photos piece, not a single damn person, like 6 people out of 200, guessed that it was the Moto X. Everyone else was like, oh, Lumia 1020, those look great. No.
Wow.
People can't tell the damn difference.
I still believe those contests are just a little bit of blind guessing, and that might speak more to the Moto X's popularity than anything.
Maybe so. I don't know.
A lot of people have it, so.
Yeah, it is not scientific. I don't know. But Brandon, the camera on the iPhone 6, I mean, you said it's not that great an improvement over the 5, but you say you still think it's the best camera outside of the 1020. I don't know, man. When I'm using the camera on the iPhone, first of all, I'm not having a great time because whoever made the decision to build the UI such that in order to switch from photo to video to panorama to whatever, I have to confine myself to this tiny little sliver of space between the capture button and the viewfinder area to like swipe in, and it's the least intuitive thing ever.
It's so stupid.
Dumb.
It's so stupid.
It's like my least favorite thing of the whole damn thing. And then you get the pictures off the phone, and Michael Fisher has spent long years in the company of Brandon Miniman and has been hearing time and time again how great these damn iPhone cameras are. I look at the damn things and I'm like, it's all right. That's sort of what it was like. I mean, it's not as doesn't look as brilliant as it was. That was actually a really beautiful day. This looks an average Tuesday.
I think the truth is that if you look at it on the iPhone screen, it's really good, even if you zoom in. But if you're putting it on your desktop monitor, and this happens with every phone that I've ever had, it's like, whoa, that's what it looks like. Look how much noise there is. This is crazy. Do you use the volume plus button to take the...
No, I won't brook that nonsense. If you are a manufacturer who has neglected to put a hardware camera shutter on your phone, I'm not going to play your BS game.
It's just as good.
It's not just as good. It is nowhere near just as good. You don't have half press to focus.
You don't have half press to focus.
Press it to launch from standby. You do need it. You need all that, and it's
in the perfect location. It's like a DSLR.
Dumb.
Well, you can launch from standby. Can't the G3, if you hold the volume from standby, you go right to the camera?
No.
No?
That would be awesome.
Not on iOS. No, yeah, and not on some Android phones either.
No, the LG G3.
Oh, the G3. Yeah, you can press and hold volume down to launch the camera, but I can't remember if you can do it from standby or not. Someone will tell us.
So regarding the iPhone 6 camera, I think there's a couple of places where it's particularly awesome, this version versus the 5S. One is video focusing. The way it rapidly focuses in video is just unbelievable.
Yes. Focus pixels.
Focus pixels. I saw this article on The Verge where they took a 5S and a 6. This guy went to like Iceland with the iPhone 6, and he took like an item right near the camera lens and then threw it out to sea. And the entire time, the focus of the camera went from the item very quickly to like the landscape, and then on the 5S it took like a second to focus. And that like translates to real world when you're taking a video of a person moving, or you're going from a macro to a landscape looking up at the sky, and it's rapid fast.
Agreed. One of my least favorite things to do, and favorite things to do in a review comparison, is to take a phone, take the other phone, put them together, and take one video from the same vantage point and watch the differences in how they explode. Now, you don't really see it as much in stills, but when you're watching a video and you're watching them side by side with the dividing line down the middle of the screen, you can really see the differences in auto exposure, in autofocus, and in stability. And that's another place the iPhone 6 does excel, is in digital stability. I haven't seen digital stabilization this good since I used an Xperia Z2. And it looks like OIS. And I say that fully aware of the fact that sort of like OIS has become this trump card. You know, it's like, oh, we have OIS. Oh, sweet. Then I will not question your camera's awesomeness.
Yeah.
Really, OIS does vary from phone to phone.
Can we even recognize OIS when we see it? We always have to confirm this when we're checking into the hardware specs. I don't know if you showed someone a bunch of camera samples, they could tell you if this thing had OIS or not.
That's a good point.
We may give it a little more credit than it deserves.
I think if you showed someone the iPhone 6 camera footage and asked if it was optically stabilized, 9 out of 10 of them would say yes. It's just that good, and it's stunning that you can make digital stabilization that good without having such a huge penalty on resolution. Particularly since we're only shooting at 1080p, we're not shooting at 4K on this thing.
So just to close out that thought, the second thing that I think iPhone 6 does well is low light. And it's funny because if you compare it to the M8 can see more light, but at the expense of clarity of the image and, of course, the resolution's 4 megapixels. The iPhone can see a little bit less light, but it gets it more right. You know what I mean?
You know, it's funny. People have been asking for that comparison, Brennan, and I sadly haven't had the time to make it yet. I've been working on the review. Jaime will be doing that comparison, and I really hope he will do some low light shots.
Right.
We'll see how it goes. He's also doing the versus G3 as well. BT.
Is it true Jaime flew 1,000 miles to the U.S. to buy an iPhone?
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's he did fly 1,000 miles to the U.S.
Whether he walked 500 miles, then he walked 500 more. So he could bring the iPhone 6 back to his door.
Walk 1,000 miles, yeah, I heard the same. Well, it looks like Taylor Martin's going to be joining us for the news section, which is just wonderful. I'm going to send him the link here. Before we let Brandon go, I want to ask him for his final thoughts before he takes off. There's so much about the iPhone, Brandon, that we couldn't cover on this show, and there's a lot we did cover, but let me know if there's anything that you didn't get to say.
I guess the only thing that we didn't talk about is battery life.
Yes. What has your experience been? Mine has been positive so far.
Yeah. You know, my experience from the very first iPhone was that it got me through the day. And the new iPhone gets me through the day. I think it's really tough to tell in that first week, right? Because you're using it a lot and you're experimenting with auto brightness levels, and the battery, I think batteries need a couple of weeks to get to peak performance. Maybe that's my imagination, but it's tough to tell this early on. But I think it's going to be another story of, like, you know, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. you got 20% left, and if you're going out that night, you got to charge, just like any other phone. But for me, as long as I can get that 7 to 7 without the phone going dead, I've got what I need.
Yeah, I'm with you. I got to 10 hours typically, and with heavy use. I mean, moderate to heavy use, which people often ask us in the comments what that means. It's always difficult to review a device that's not an Android device for me in this respect, because you can't get screen on time. And someone please tell me if there's an app that I haven't been able to find one that gives you screen on time on an iOS device or a Windows device for that matter. Yeah, so it's tough. It's tough to measure that. But for me, heavy use is a whole lot of notifications all the time, constant Twitter use, a lot of web browsing, polling from 3 email accounts, and you know, a handful of phone calls and some podcast streaming as well.
You're talking about the 6, right?
They're talking about the 6, not the 6 Plus. The 6 Plus has substantially better battery life in my usage. Yeah, but when you can get to 10 hours, and I even got to 16 hours once with still some charge left, that was more of a moderate day. I mean, that's pretty awesome.
Pretty good.
I love the people in our chat are so on top of things. Like Taylor Martin joined the room not 20 seconds ago, and Arjun PC has already said Taylor is coming.
How you women?
Do you guys have my video? Because
no video from Taylor's video is, it's great though because your headshot looks better than any of our live feeds.
Yeah, it's very professional.
Yeah, he's on the phone. He's got a Pebble on. Who took that photo of you, Taylor?
A photography friend of mine.
I gotta get my photography friend to take my photo. Did I tell you guys about my like most wanted photo of myself?
Make us some new headshots.
Sounds
yeah,
weird.
no, not actor headshots. I'm done taking those. But there's a photo of John Rubinstein from the Palm days walking down the street with a Palm Pre in his hand, and he's got like a button-down shirt and also these sweet mom jeans on. I really want to do that shot, except I want to be carrying 2 phones, and I want
high waist, elastic.
Yeah, I don't think they're elastic, but they are high waist. He does look like a '90s mom. It's awesome. But I mean, just in the pants, like the rest, John Rubinstein looks awesome. But anyway. Let's stop talking about John Rubinstein.
Can I say one thing before I leave?
I wish you would.
It's a theory I have about the Apple Watch and why they haven't talked about battery life, and I think it'll turn out to be not true. But if it turns out to be true, I want everyone to know that I said it first.
You heard it here.
Okay.
Brandon, go ahead.
We said something last week that turned out to be true, and I don't know what it is. Jules has just Jules
What is that?
posted a photo from the Cape May County Herald of Michael J. Fisher is the area's most wanted man. He looks like a character from Grand Theft Auto 5. From Stab City. The point I was going to make was that, Brandon, please look at the one piece of listener mail I sent you, because I think this is a question only you can address. This is the last thing I'd like you to talk about in your 1 minute on the air. Can you pull that up?
Which one is this?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. And while you're saying that, I want to make the point that someone also wrote in, and we'll address this in the listener mail, but apparently we made a huge prediction last week. And apparently we were very smart people, because we predicted Ben Ghazi.
It happens.
Yeah. And Brandon, why don't you read that piece of listener mail for us?
Oh, I've got to bring it up first.
I thought you
Which is a good opportunity for me to say that thing I was going to say. Right?
Sure. I thought you said the thing you were going to say.
I didn't say the thing I was going. What did I say?
Thanks for ringing the chime, Jules. I don't know. I thought you said the thing you were going to say.
No. I was going to say that I think that the reason the Apple Watch is so thick, and the reason they haven't talked about battery life, is because it's got. Remember that patent they filed for kinetic charging?
Oh, I wish this was true. It's not going to be. Oh.
I mean, think about how thick it is, and think about how they're not making it for another 6 months.
No,
and so you got to think
not a chance.
There's not a chance. But what if? What would you like? Would you go nuts?
Remind us what kinetic charging is for those not familiar.
That means as you move your body, the battery charges and replenishes itself, so you don't have to plug it in as much.
There's just not enough power there. The reason it works for regular smartwatches is because these things, I mean, this is a watch that will last you a year on a regular battery. We're comparing that to a watch that you're charging every day, unless you have Tourette's syndrome, or not Tourette's. What are you shaking around? Well, something other horribly un-PC.
Epilepsy is what you're saying, which is very insensitive. But
a Macarena dancer, you are not going to be able to charge a smartphone from kinetic energy. No.
Well, isn't it possible, Stephen, that you're thinking of like one of the like a Tag Heuer watch or something?
Yeah,
that has,
something like that.
Isn't it possible that within like 10 minutes of wearing that, you've charged the watch enough to last the entire day, and you would have generated so much more electricity throughout the course of the day if it kept.
I am extremely incredulous that this could even be remotely possible. I don't know the current figures, but it does not seem like, consider like those hand cranked LED flashlights. All the energy you need to put in to make it last for 20 minutes. You know, you gotta think that it's the year 2015 almost.
I
would love it to be true. This is exactly what smartwatches need. I don't think it's happening just yet. But,
they're gonna put a new lithium sulfur battery in there, and all our problems.
Lithium sulfur, just like just like Oppo, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, listener mail, which I think you're going to be disappointed because I don't really have much there to.
You're the only one on the team who I think can speak to this because none of the rest of us know a damn thing about jailbreaking unless Steven has some weird.
I've jailbroken.
As much as you like.
Have you, Taylor?
Yes.
See?
Oh. All right. Never mind, Brandon. You can go.
I am insulted.
I'm sorry, Taylor. Well, Taylor, I didn't think you were going to be here. I'm sorry.
Well,
excuse me.
It's okay. I'm signing up for my new Elo account, so.
Hello.
Oh, can you invite me? I want to invite.
I'll invite you, Brandon.
Loco.
All right. Well, I'm going to jump off. I'm assuming you don't want me to hit the stop broadcast button.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Maybe you could not hit that. That would be great.
What if I hit the leave call button at the top of the screen? Is that going to be okay?
Oh Lord! Everyone, keep your call recorders going.
Yeah, I think so, Brandon. Thanks for joining us, by the way, man. I'm sorry you couldn't stay for longer, and I'm sorry for starting late, but I'm really glad you got to come on by and share your thoughts on the iPhone with us.
It's so fun to talk about tech with you guys because my wife won't listen to me when I do that.
Oh. Well, listen. Anytime you want to come on the show, Pocketnow Weekly Granddaddy, you come on board.
Thanks, bro. Good seeing you guys.
Likewise, man. See you later.
Take care.
Bye.
So now we're light
noise.
one Brandon. Yeah, I'm getting that electronic interference as well, Taylor. We're light one Brandon, we're heavy one Taylor, and suddenly we sound like we're on an aircraft that's having an electrical problem. Is that your fault, Taylor?
I think that's.
I was going to ask you if it was a fat joke, but.
No.
We're heavy one, Taylor.
Heavy one, Taylor. No, it's airliner lingo. It's all right. So listen, Taylor, if you haven't already, go ahead and set yourself for audio only because we're only getting a black screen when you talk anyway. And it is time for news now. I've muted Jules. Jules sounded the news chime a long time ago. Then we didn't do news. And I think Jules is going to have a great time editing this show, particularly also because I'm going to be peaking the whole time because I realize my gain's too high.
I have my fridge plugged in for the first 20 minutes, so this is going to be all sorts of wonderful noise.
This is a maelstrom of incompetence.
Yeah.
This week cannot end fast enough. Jules is saying things in the chat, but I can't look at it because I'm still looking at the Q&A. Let's sound the news chime. Stephen, let's talk about the iPhone for just a few more minutes because that's what's leading us off of the news, and then we can talk about other stuff.
There was other stuff this week?
There was other stuff this week, but I didn't read any of it, so you are going to have to inform me about it.
I didn't read anything.
God, we are in a mess.
We're professionals.
Stephen, take us, yes. Put us back on the rails, Stephen. Save us from ourselves, please.
All right.
News.
Waiting for the rails,
Jules, that was the best news.
Jules dying a little bit.
Thank you, friend.
Oh, that was news. Oh, I see.
Yes, news.
News. Now that it's official. Let's see. Apple. Okay, so iPhone 6 sales are underway. They got underway last Friday, and Apple says that it was off to a record-setting weekend, moving 10 million such units just over the course of those first couple days. And this is only with sales open in those few launch countries. What are there, like 6 or 7 of them? It hasn't even come. Well, today it comes to a whole bunch more, and then like 150 by the end of the year. So Apple off to a great start, at least for itself. This is the best it's ever done for a phone launch, and that really speaks well to the public's acceptance of these new sizes. We weren't sure that iOS users would be so willing to take the jump to a larger phone, but clearly they are, and just throwing their money at Apple in the process. Has not been smooth sailing all around because while they're buying those iPhones, a whole lot of people getting in their hands, they're also starting to damage them. It is the bend gate, the ominous. Apple always has to have a gate, I think, when the phone's coming out. Antenna gate.
Didn't you make up antenna gate, Stephen? I heard from another team member that you were the origin point for the term antenna gate. Is that wrong?
I will take credit for that. I have no reason to disbelieve it.
Excellent. All right, good.
So this, I don't know how you could not be familiar with this. It seems to be the biggest Apple story of the week. Users are damaging their iPhone 6 Pluses especially. I think it might have happened to the 6s as well, but we're seeing people putting these phones in their pockets, and not even their back pockets, where you might accidentally sit down and your bum will crush the phone a little bit, but just in the front pocket where you think it would be nice and safe, yet these phones are getting damaged. People sending in pics showing a little bit of a cant to the phone, not quite G-flexy, but definitely not straight either. So people are getting super worried. Are these phones not up to Apple's quality standards? Are the users just, I don't know, wearing way too tight pants and having the phone sit too high on their waist? Apple started responding to this. It's a little bit on the defensive. It's been showing how it tests the iPhones. It's talking about the materials it puts in to reinforce and strengthen them. And it says that hardly anyone's actually having this problem. While there are a few of these pictures going around online that are getting a lot of attention, it says that only, I think, nine users had stepped up to make a formal, this happened to my phone and I want to fix it complaint.
Right.
So, mountain, molehill, maybe.
So a lot of people in the comments have been suggesting that, or I'm sorry, I'm exaggerating. One person in the comment has suggested that perhaps I might be having this problem with my 6 Plus because of my tight northern hipster pants. And I responded by saying, Taylor Martin, your jeans are skinnier than mine, friend.
They are, and I have no problem with any bending of any sort on any phone ever.
You ain't been getting the bends, huh?
No bends over here.
I guess move from the Levi's loose to the slim, not the skinny yet. And I can barely. I tried seeing if I could fit my phone in and out of the pocket when sitting down. It's a struggle there. Maybe I'm wearing the wrong size. But.
I should have worn my LD West original holster today. This is a
this
really big
rise above it all
opportunity. That's exactly right. You just get some suspender holsters on, you solve all these problems, folks. Actually, there was a humorous thread on Twitter between a bunch of famous technology people talking about how this is going to be the return of the holster, which I thought was just hilarious.
Cannot come soon enough.
Yeah. So anyway, okay, so that's not the only issue, though.
And if, by the way, you are having this and you're not just hearing that, oh yeah, this is something that's happening, I'm going to go make a video and snap my phone on YouTube. If you have a legitimate, I did not mean for this to happen, and it did, Apple seems to not be being a jerk about this and is replacing phones that have this damage. So if you did experience this with your 6 Plus, get in touch with Apple, and hopefully you'll get some warranty replacements lickety-split. And can be very careful about how you treat the phone in the future.
Amen, friend. Why don't you tell us about the software issues that cropped up as well? Apple has not been having a good week here.
If it's not one thing, it's another. iOS 8's been out for a little while now, and we've been looking forward to an update. There's some little bugs here and there. Users are having Wi-Fi issues, and there were a litany of other problems described in a leak that came out earlier this week talking about an 8.0.1 update already getting looked at by the carriers, nearly ready to go out. Sure enough, it comes out, and people start jumping on it, and right away, Twitter is ablaze with reports, this broke my phone. It killed Touch ID. I can't connect to a cellular tower at all. If you don't have Wi-Fi data, your phone is then dead. And Apple, to their credit, responded very quickly, pulling the update, I think only after maybe an hour or two, and then started providing information on how to downgrade, because clearly this is not, if your phone can't connect to a cellular tower, you don't want to sit and wait for the new update to come. So Apple, in what I believe is the first time it did this, provided users an official route to move back to the previous iOS 8.0.0 version. It was just a Band-Aid because, 24 hours later, now we have 8.0.2, which has all the 8.0.1 fixes, and doesn't kill your phone in the process. So, best of both worlds.
Yeah, I was actually doing a restore on my iPhone 6 Plus here while this was happening. So in the middle of my restore, which I couldn't stop, it was like, oh, hey, you have a new software update available. I'm like, no! Dear God, no! And I turned off Wi-Fi until it decided that it didn't really need to do that, and I was pleased then.
Yeah, but we're past this now. I have not heard anything about awful problems with 8.0.2, and hopefully if there was something bad, there would be this, again, massive outcry from social media. So it seems to be safe. So go ahead, get 8.0.2 on your phone, and you'll be good to go for the foreseeable future, until the inevitable 8.0.3 comes out 2 weeks from now.
Sorry, Taylor, what has been your experience on your 6 Plus as you've been using it to generate content? Have you been ensnared in any of these issues?
I have not. Just the rotation thing that I was telling you about.
What is that?
Sometimes within apps, the phone will not rotate to landscape for whatever reason. You open up a YouTube video and it's in landscape, but then when you close the video, the phone's still in portrait. You go home and it's fine, but within apps, it doesn't rotate too well. and especially within the camera. So I'll be holding the phone out in front of me in landscape, snapping a picture, and it takes the picture as a portrait picture.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We were talking a little bit before you came on about how the 6 Plus feels undercooked compared to the 6. Yeah. So, but that's all right. I'm sad to say that you missed a big chunk of the Apple stuff, and we're actually kind of looking forward to going outside the Apple envelope for the rest.
Before we move on, it's probably worth mentioning that even that 801 bug was not affecting everyone, and I saw it earlier today, but I'm misplacing the number at the moment. It wasn't, just the 9 users total, but it was a fractional percentage of how many iOS users had these problems with killing their cellular radio with 801. So, you can sort of understand how Apple might have missed something that's not affecting a huge swath, but clearly when we have the tens of millions of phones going out just this past weekend, there's enough people out there that it's only affecting a tiny percentage of them. That's still a crap load of people. So this is why you might not have seen problems, but they were there for others. So we're happy we're past them.
True enough. Yes, agreed. And speaking of being past stuff, I think let's move past Apple to the.
Yes.
I think we're going to talk about some other stuff here. Fill me in on Shamu, will you, please?
So Shamu.
I want to make sure Taylor's still. I want to get a vibe for how Taylor's feeling about this, Stephen.
Yeah,
Taylor,
sure, please.
Taylor, are you as disconnected as I am? Do you not know what this is?
I know what it is, and I just want to say that I hate the name.
The name is utter shit.
Yeah,
but it's a code name. They're all utter shit.
I don't care that it's a code name. I watched Blackfish recently. So.
Oh, it's in poor taste.
Yeah.
Oh, God, everyone's watching that movie but me. We haven't done tech movie recommendations in a while, guys. Keep it in your head for the end of the show. I don't have one. Paranoia. Everybody's coming to get me. Shamu, tell us stuff, Stephen. Flagpole sitter, Harvey Danger, a good song.
Oh, yeah, nice. I also want some Eve 6. All right.
Yes. Showerhead is an epically weird song. It makes you feel funny in your cheating parts.
We've been hearing for the past months or so now that Motorola would be the company behind the Nexus 6. And there's this phone codenamed Shamu that's been the primary contender for what this device could be. It is a big old thing. And the rumors in the past have been, jumping, is this going to be 5.9, 5.2, maybe even 5.5 in there. It's a larger phone than Nexus models in the past. And this week we got, first, both a render of the phone, showing it looking very kind of Moto X-y. It still has Moto X 14y. It still has that kind of dimple on the back and the big old ring with those LEDs around the lens. And then, like a day later, we got a picture of actual hardware. And I'm running this through all of the error level analysis things I can find, trying to see if this is legit or not. It looks to be real. And we're seeing it next to a G3 for comparison. G3, not a tiny phone to begin with, and this Shamu is, just overpoweringly larger than it. I mean, it's like a Senate, but it seems like a giant phone.
It seems like more than that to me, Steve. It looks like a 3/4 of an inch taller on the Motorola.
I have no sense of linear scale. I shouldn't even offer estimates.
No, I don't know.
A mile or two smaller. I don't know.
Yeah. It looks like a motor. It looks like you know what it looks like? It looks like a Motorola version of the iPhone 6 Plus. Like they just took a straw and stuck it into a port and just blew into it until the Moto X was bigger. Yeah. Yeah. I'm
not liking it.
No, I mean we were just dogging Taylor before you came on here. We were just dogging Motorola for, ditching the approach of going with a more palmable, smaller footprint in favor of the new Moto X. And now we're looking at this thing. If this thing is at all true, it looks like a phablet, but it is not designed to be a phablet. It just looks like a scaled-up Moto X Plus 1.
Yeah. Yeah. It's giant. It looks a little smaller than, I'd say, the Z Ultra. It's definitely smaller than that, but...
That shouldn't be a selling point. It's a little bit smaller than a monster phone.
Yeah.
I don't know how much. It's really hard to scale that. I don't have a G3 here. I'm going to say, just based on what I have laying here, that thing's the same size as the Mate 7.
This is looking like a 5.9 incher, I think.
Right. And I mean, but this is not one and the same As the Nexus, the rumored Nexus 5.19, that's a different device, Stephen?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. And this is crazy stuff. I just don't. I'm sort of, my mind is sort of fried about this because it has come across a really disturbing possibility. What if this is real, and in addition to this being real, other manufacturers are having meetings right now, looking at the iPhone 6 Plus, which they have on their conference table, and saying, "Guys, Apple finally did it. Now we're not the weirdos. This is the new normal. We have to go even bigger."
Did this justify all these giant phones?
And I'm here to say no. No, we don't want this. People don't want this. People laugh openly at the 6 in my hand, not just the 6 Plus. Taylor, have you had any sort of public response to your 6 Plus? Or what have people on the street been telling you?
Basically, everyone has just been impressed that I actually have one.
Just because it's
so hard to find. Yeah, they're like, "You've got a 6 already?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, whatever." But nobody, I mean, they're like, "Wow, that's big," but I guess people are used to me having really big phones now because I've had all the notes. I carried the Z Ultra for a while, so this thing looks tiny beside that. I wouldn't say it's anything outside what I normally receive from people, but maybe in slightly higher volume just because it's an iPhone and it's a little more in the public eye. But yeah, I wouldn't say it's anything like, "Oh my God, that thing's giant." It's more like, "Oh, that's it."
Yeah. Well, it has the advantage of being a very well-known device at this point, so I can understand how that's the case. All right. Well, I'm sure we'll be talking about the Shamu quite a bit. Stephen, let's move on. What's the next thing on the rundown here?
There's some Sammy news.
Samsung Galaxy news. What's the story?
Yeah, that Galaxy Alpha that you're going to start checking out soon doesn't look like it's alone. We've been hearing that there might be a whole series of phones kind of copying that Alpha look, the iPhone 5S copy, if you want to call it, but a Galaxy A series has been emerging. We first started hearing some model numbers, and then leaks have clued us into these actual names. It looks like we're going to get an A3, an A5, and an A7. And they're all kind of mid-range devices. They're not going to be as high-spec as the Galaxy Alpha itself. That also has the benefit that they're probably not going to be nearly as expensive. And we heard some rumored pricing. It's putting them all in the $300 to $500 range. It's not clear exactly where all are going to fall, but maybe like $50 pricing increments between them. We also heard a little bit about availability, and that the A7 might be a little harder to find, like a limited release to only certain nations. But A3 and A5, the two more affordable options, are presumably going to be available on a global scale, and like $350, $400 for the A3, $450 for the A5. So if you like the look of the Galaxy Alpha, but you maybe don't have so much money to throw around, these are not crazy high prices, a little bit above Nexus level, but I think still pretty affordable.
Yeah, these are compelling to me. I'm like, we're about to unbox the Galaxy Alpha, as we've said a bunch of times. Taylor and I saw the Galaxy Alpha for the first time at IFA, and I think we were both quite impressed, as I recall, Taylor.
Yeah.
Taylor was really impressed.
Yeah, he's speechless. He was so impressed by it. I rather liked the electric blue version, but I like the fact that they come in sort of new colors that are not just new to be new. They're also like inoffensive and bold and fun. Mm-hmm. And my freaking page just reloaded in the middle of my sentence, so I'm a little distracted by that. That's frustrating. So this A series.
We haven't heard anything about color options for this guy yet. We
only see one. Of the white.
It's weird though. Someone pointed this out in the comments, and I went and I looked closer, and it seems to be the case. There's no obvious speaker on this guy.
Do we have pictures of all its edges?
It's along the bottom edge, if I remember correctly.
Is it? I thought it looked like there was a microphone down there. I don't know if I saw that.
Well, if it echoes the Alpha, then yeah, it would be on the bottom. But I don't know. I guess we'll see. It would be nice if I had the time to unbox that thing today. I don't know. We'll have to see. But I'm looking forward to this. And the reason I put it in the rundown is not just because I wanted to talk about the Alpha a little bit. It's because it's interesting to see Samsung. It's interesting to see this concrete evidence of a change in at least a part of Samsung's strategy. Not only they might call these things galaxies, but they're not called galaxies internally, at least, if these A names are accurate.
No, yeah, we
Right.
saw a boot screen. It's a Galaxy A5. Is the name.
Oh, okay, all right. But they're still not. Yeah, it's a new line, right? Have
Yeah,
we
it's not the
seen?
Galaxy S or anything. No.
Right. What have we had before? We have the Galaxy S and then the S Mini family with the Galaxy Note, and then there's a bunch of the kind of random Galaxy names. Is there any
K.
other? The K. Oh, the K. Yes, yes, yes.
Oh
Back
yeah.
in the day, there was an M.
Galaxy
Uh,
M.
there was a big sheet that Samsung released that detailed what all of the different letters meant.
Really? That was not recent though?
No, that was 2 or 3 years ago.
I'm sure some of it's changed by now, but I wonder if
Galaxy number letters.
the early indication here seems to be that the A series is going to be this sort of affordable line, like you were saying, Stephen. It's more like, not quite
2011.
accessible. Wow, that was a long time ago. So it'll be fun to see what the A series means for them, and it's interesting to see that they're kind of going with this aesthetic choice that they went with on the Alpha across more lines than just the Note.
These are terrible. So August 24, 2011. Samsung said R stood for royal/refined. W stood for wonder.
I
M
remember
for
this.
magical. And Y for young.
Oh, right, the Galaxy
Yeah.
Y. Yeah. Well, it sounds like Huawei. Like they do the same things, like the platinum and the gold line, the diamond, it's the PY and PG and D.
The Galaxy Magical.
Oh yeah, there it is.
Just imagine the little advert they'd play for that at the beginning of the press conference.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing it. I think it's going to be pretty cool. Obviously, we have the Note between us and that, but it's just it's always fun to see something different. And Samsung apparently needs to try something different because their numbers continue to be, well, not so great, right, Stephen?
Well, yeah, took a little bump in the stock market. I don't think this is nearly as bad news as we heard recently about Sony and its earning projections taking a dive. But Samsung stocks took a little dip, 15% over, I think, the course of the year. So, yeah, this represents a $30 billion loss for the company's market value. But then again, Samsung is, Apple-like stature where it has billions and billions of dollars lying around. A 15% decline is not good news. Is it, time for Samsung to start changing things up and rethinking its strategy? Again, maybe, but it's not in capital T trouble. And I think at least with these new directions it's taking, the new Alpha line trying to differentiate its offerings a little, and maybe as its smartphone offerings, or smartwatch offerings start improving, it's really run through a couple development cycles really, really quickly. And clearly this 15% loss doesn't mean that the early ones necessarily caught on well, but maybe it's starting to find its groove, and we're going to see an upswing. So panic might be premature, but Samsung maybe not the best company, or maybe it's a great company to invest in now while it's cheaper. So this is not an investment podcast. Do not take our advice on financial matters, please.
Except for, I think I know what Samsung needs to do to turn things around.
Yeah?
They need more devices.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, they don't have enough devices in the portfolio. You're right.
They need more phones, more watches, more tablets.
Just more
tablets.
all
Yeah,
around.
drop the ball on tablets this year.
Yeah, I caught a snippet of Nook conversation at a bookstore the other day. I was walking by the Nook stand, and some people were playing with the new Galaxy S or the Galaxy Tab S Nook or whatever they call it. And I heard 3 seconds of it, but it was just basically like, I wanted to, no.
Did you guys see that wonderful Samsung commercial with Kristen Bell and Dax Shepard?
No, is that the one where they're making fun of Apple?
No, it was just them enjoying Samsung products. It was a very sweet commercial.
Oh no, I
haven't
haven't
had a chance
seen
to run it, but look that one up. That's a nice one.
All right. Yeah, it's been interesting to see what Samsung's shift actually in advertising. You have previously when they were pushing the S4 and stuff, they had those kind of unfunny commercials with that cloying, plucky guitar thing, and it's like, get ready for 30 seconds of unfunny. This is going to be shitty. And then they kind of let up on that, which I was happy about, and started just showcasing the device when they brought out the S5. And then they started putting up review quotes, like custom-pulled review quotes that were very complimentary. But the music was good. It was minimal. It was a more grown-up sort of commercial. And now you get the kind of weird stuff with the Alpha, where the word Galaxy at Samsung isn't even in the commercial. I don't think there's just
I haven't seen those.
I think they're for the European market, but it's basically just a lot of close-ups of the Galaxy Alpha being put into and taken out of rhinestone-covered purses. And I think the only voiceover in it is a woman going, "Just Alpha." And, it's very, very unfamiliar. But
I would love to see the German version of that commercial.
yeah.
Everything is normal. Everything looks all business professional and everything, and all of a sudden somebody's slipping a phone into a bag that says tits.
Oh,
What?
yeah, Stephen, we were talking about this in Berlin about how, you'll see just,
There were tit
otherwise...
bags in Berlin?
Totally. The example Taylor's referring to is just a sort of young, professional-looking young woman, very well put together, wearing some nice clothes, obviously on her way to and from some important meeting or something. Everything was in place except that her purse, her giant handbag, was it had two giant words on it, and those words were tits, ass. I don't know. We're probably missing out on some style.
I'm almost surprised there wasn't a hashtag before both of those. I think that would have tied it all
yeah,
together.
I think it would have done nicely, yeah. Jules has helpfully run the Galaxy Alpha commercial for us. There's more than being taken into and put out of bags. It's carrying them alongside books and stuff like that, but just Alpha. Anyway, we're going to look at that. That's from, I should mention, this from 28 Mobile. So we thank them for sending that along. And AT&T, I think, is launching it now, right? Today or Sunday or something, because it's finally coming.
I know
to the
it's coming
States
soon. Yeah.
Yeah. So good on you, AT&T. Good on you, Samsung. Maybe
AT&T got an exclusive. That doesn't sound right.
yeah. No, that can't be. And then immediately after the Galaxy Alpha, I'll be taking a look at the at the Xperia Z3 Compact.
Oh.
Which I'm very jazzed about as well. So what's
Yeah, can test that battery life on that guy. That's supposed to be crazy good.
What, on the Z3 Compact?
Yeah.
Well, terrific.
Mind blowing. I don't know.
That's true or not.
Yeah, you guys were talking about battery life a minute ago when I just hopped on. You were talking about it, I guess, on the 6, right?
Yeah, we were talking about it on the
Sounds
6.
about right.
Nice.
Yep.
I have a little segment in the video that I will upload after this podcast about the battery life on the 6 Plus.
Oh, nice.
I'll give you a short snippet.
Yeah.
I used it as hard as I could. I won't say as hard as I could. I was kind of busy through the day, but very, very hard. I used it 6-7 hours. It was unplugged from 10 a.m. to 2 a.m., and at 2 a.m. when I plugged it up, it had 34% battery left. So
nice. Yeah, I'm
talking like 4 hours of audio streamed to a Bluetooth speaker, 2.5
That takes like
hours.
no battery.
Yeah, well, 2.5 hours of playing games
Okay.
and just crazy stuff. So
Taylor, what are your favorite games to stress test an iOS device with?
I play a lot of different games, but this one I've just been playing Asphalt. But I've been playing table tennis and Alone. They're not really intense games, but
Do you know what's annoying? I'm not tired of Asphalt. Asphalt 8 is a great game. I'll play it all the time. I'm tired of filming Asphalt.
yeah,
I'm
There's
on
no
behalf
Asphalt,
of our
isn't there?
viewers. I'm tired of Asphalt. What?
Do we have a new Asphalt out now we can start testing with?
Well, there's a new
Yeah.
Modern Combat out. I don't know. Is there a new Asphalt?
yeah, it's kind of
Or
retro.
the iOS only?
Oh, okay. Well, then I'll download that. Thank you,
Asphalt
Stephen.
Overdrive.
Yeah.
And of course, the games from our friends at 10 Tons Limited will be well represented all the time. So, Stephen, this is in the headline, so we should probably talk about it, but this isn't our story. This is from NeoWin, who apparently got some hands-on time with the tablet that will never be from Microsoft.
I don't know about never. I'm holding out hope that could still happen.
There's no way, though, at this point. I mean, yeah, they've got a whole inventory of built devices, but the specs are just getting older with each passing moment, aren't they?
I don't know that that's necessarily going to stop them from releasing it, but we're talking about the Surface Mini here, folks. We were expecting this guy to launch back in May when we ended up getting the Pro 3, which our confusion was probably warranted because the story's been this was a very last-minute change. Microsoft was gearing up for the Mini launch. I mean, clearly was working on the Pro 3, but then all of a sudden decided, no, not going to do the Mini. We got the Pro 3 instead. And little by little, we've been hearing bits and pieces of the Mini story. We saw some signs of it in one of the Pro 3 manuals that came out. Probably the clearest word we got was from Microsoft in a financial report over the summer where it acknowledged making the decision not to launch this new form factor. I think that statement then was taken a little out of context and got people thinking this was canceled for good. I don't know that Microsoft's confirmed that. I agree, it's probably not extremely likely, but it could happen. We still have to get a regular Surface 3, so maybe this fall's launch should be a Surface 3 and a Surface Mini. But anyway, so this report went hands-on with the Mini back in the day when it was still a possibility, and it seems really taken with the device. It talks about it being really well engineered, how it looks a lot like the Pro 3. There wouldn't have been a keyboard, which is kind of weird because we've seen them as like iconic part of the Surface design. It would still have a really nice case that would be convertible, fold up, give you a stand for it, but it wouldn't have any sort of the interactive features we saw from other Surface cases in the past. It still sounds really good. The bezels are reportedly a little big, but performance was nice, and this person was really taken with it. So it's more a shame now than ever we never got to see this guy. The word pen and paper killer was thrown around a couple times, and it sounds like it would have been a stylus, probably the most important thing. This is
the same one that came with the
with a nice active stylus on there. So it really might have made a good replacement for a notebook, something a little larger than a Galaxy Note with tied into Microsoft's ecosystem.
I don't know. I have not. I have not gone hands-on with this. I probably never will unless it's released. But I can't see this being a big success. I was excited about the notion of a Surface Mini. I think it's good for manufacturers to play at different sizes. But how many Windows tablets have we seen at that footprint size, like between the 7 and 8 inch? Dell's got a bunch of them, right? There's Dell's. Even some of Dell's models are very affordable, and I admittedly I don't have the data to back this up. So if these things are selling like hotcakes somewhere, someone should let me know about it. But I just don't see that happening outside of enterprise, right?
I feel like the Surface lines have always stood apart from the rest of the Windows tablet offerings. I mean, you get great design. I love especially the integrated kickstand, it's like magnesium alloy, whatever they're built of.
Oh yeah.
Beautiful, well done. You maybe pay a little bit more, but they're high profile, and I think it's the most important thing, because Microsoft hasn't really sold the world on this idea of what sport is it? Is it football, where they're giving everyone the Surfaces now, and the players aren't quite sure what to do with them?
No, it's Steve Ballmer's new team, the LA Clippers, right? Is that basketball? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Told you in the intro, guys. We're not sporting.
Sports?
What are these sports? I don't know. I think that that's a whole other story in and of itself. Yeah. I love how Steve Ballmer buys a basketball team and then says, "Oh, you guys are using iPads? Oh, that's great. You're going to use Microsoft tablets from now on." It's like, what? No, I don't want to do this. Okay. Yeah. No. Anyway, the final news story is very exciting to me.
Speaking of different form factors,
yeah, Android in the clamshell refuses to die. Isn't that your headline, Steven?
No, this isn't a clamshell, is it?
It is a clamshell.
I think of clamshell as opening along the long axis.
Wait, you think of a clamshell as opening like an eyeglass case, like the Tablet P we talked about?
Yeah, I would call this an oyster.
No, this is clamshell. Clamshell has always been the top-mounted hinge.
Yeah.
What's a flip phone then?
Yeah, it's no. See, okay, all right. Take it back 2003 for a second. The difference between a flip phone and a clamshell is that a flip phone has a little inconsequential flip that covers the keyboard, and it doesn't really do anything. A clamshell incorporates the screen on one half and the keyboard on the other. Agree to disagree.
I've been using the terminology wrong for so long at this point. I feel like I have to push it forward as an acceptable alternative.
Well, I understand.
I'm not going to rewrite my memory here. But yeah, LG's got this folding phone. We can agree on that.
We can agree to call it a folder phone, yes.
So it's a smartphone, though. It's got this touchscreen up top. It has a number pad below, as well as hardware Android keys. Unlike, Samsung's been dropping flip, clam, folding Androids every once in a while for
flip, clam, folder
now. But Samsung's are a little higher end, and they have a screen on the outside as well. So you can use it like a normal smartphone when it's closed. This LG one it's not like that. This is protected case on the outside, which I guess is kind of nice if you don't want to worry about damaging your phone or needing a separate case for it. You just fold it shut.
Damn right.
Yeah, and it's positioned a little differently. This is part of a line of phones LG has for somewhat older users, so it has some kind of like elderly friendly features, like pseudo life alert thing where if you leave the phone, if you're disabled somewhere, you have a bad fall, you can't get to.
Oh.
Honestly, now I can understand how life alert makes sense because if you can't get to a phone, it'll let people know that you're there. This you still have the phone, so I guess if you for some reason can't make a call, it will detect that your phone's standing still. It'll auto dial your family to let you know about your position. But it's a weird device for a lot of reasons, not just the hardware design. But I just like seeing different things.
Me too. Especially with such a good idea as a clamshell. Stephen, you were making the case for it before. You don't need a carrying case. The screen is protected. Everything is together. I sound like an old man. But when I was at the Harvard Square Starbucks a couple months ago, I saw a woman from presumably from overseas because she had one of these things, and you can't get them here in the States. And she was not an old woman. She was younger than me, probably, and she was using this thing. And I was like, oh, my God. I think it was one of the Samsung ones, like the Galaxy Folder or whatever. And I was like, yes, Steven's modeling an old clamshell device for us. What is that?
Oh, this is Samsung something or another.
From Verizon or T-Mo?
Verizon A530.
The A530, yes, indeed. Oh, and Champagne. I remember when that thing was so fancy. The extendable antennas. You can get that CDMA 800. Yeah. Or amps 800 if you want. Good times, too. That one might have been digital only, actually. Yeah, big battery, removable. It's fun stuff. Jules is putting up pictures of clam chowder, which means it's about time for me to eat. But before we get to that, I want to encourage Stephen to prepare. He's got a new segment for y'all called the, well, it's not a new segment. It's not a new segment. It's an old segment. It's a segment that we ran as an independent show for about 4 episodes until I got too busy to do it, called the Pocketnow Roundup. That's what it was called.
We're going to do a sound effect for that.
Yeah, Jules, we should get a sound effect. Can we get like a horse sound effect for that, or like a...
How is that the roundup sound?
Cowboy corralling. It's time for the roundup. Set your boots down.
Okay.
Stay a while. Keep your boots on.
Can we get the theme song to the Nickelodeon show Roundhouse?
Ooh, yeah. Let's get a locomotive. We can just reference that. This will be the most strange sound choice ever. Jules, I give you full discretion. You make the roundup sound, and it'll be great.
But the point of the roundup, which we have not mentioned so far, folks,
right.
We just told you about some of the big news stories for the week. News is not the only thing we have on Pocket Now. We have a lot of features, editorials, reviews. So this is a way to get you caught up if you have not been reading the site regularly. Check in with a podcast, hear about these stories. If you're interested in learning more about them, they're all on the website for this past week. So let's get started with over the weekend. We had Adam Dowd weighing in on the Microsoft rebranding issue. We've been hearing that Microsoft is trying to move away from Windows Phone, make it just Windows. Dowd's got some opinions on it. He's not entirely sold on the idea, so if you aren't sure either, you should take a read of that. Michael had a video for us looking at the iPhone 6 from the perspective of a Windows Phone user. Yes, this sounds a bit like apples and oranges, sure, but iPhone 6 also means a new version of iOS 8, so Mike takes a look at how that stacks up against the Windows Phone experience and what each looks like from the position of the fan of the other.
Coming up next week, a video on why you should never call me Mike.
Sorry.
No problem.
Let's see.
Can I please get that video, even though you were joking? Because that would be great.
Yeah, no problem.
Just Michael angrily stewing, shaking around a lot, and
just doing this, just shaking my head for 30 minutes. Go ahead, Steven.
On Monday, Joe Levi talked a bit about the new Samsung commercials that are making fun of Apple, and Joe has some pretty inflammatory things to say to Apple fans here. He thinks that people don't like them because they're true. It's not so bad, though. He makes the point that this is Apple's being encouraged to start making big changes to his product, so it's good that it's getting these criticisms from other manufacturers, but hornet's nest being opened up all the same. Let's see, we also saw from Taylor, had a new video about the iPhone 6 and its size. This is the biggest iPhone to date by a long shot, so he presents us with some nice comparisons to older devices, so if you haven't had the chance to check one out in person, you can see how they shape up.
That's the 6 Plus, right, Stephen?
The 6 Plus, yes.
Good stuff.
Let's see, he also showed us a little about iOS and third-party apps, talking about some problems and why, even though things are getting better, it's not quite to the point where Android is. He had issues with the new third-party keyboard support. It's great that we see it now, but there's some glitches that keep it from being as great as it could be. Also talking about how Touch ID functions, how password managers don't quite work how we'd like them to without proper pop-up window support, and issues with sharing things on apps. On Tuesday, we had Joe talking to us about the incognito mode in the Chrome browser, and warning you that while it sounds like it's going to protect your identity and keep you safe from prying eyes, that's not exactly what it's doing, and someone could still, up to nefarious purposes, identify you uniquely and keep an eye on your online activities. So be wary of incognito if that's what you're interested in.
When you're browsing all those recipes, you don't want your family to know that you're preparing to cook. Be careful.
Absolutely.
Christmas shopping online, duh.
That's right. That's right.
Let's see. Wednesday brought us some more comparisons. Taylor showed us the iPhone 6 Plus against the Oppo Find 7a, both 5.5 inches. So if you just want to see how a phone this size compares to something on the Android side of the fence, something to check out. We also had Adam Dowd weighing in. He had a couple pieces here. One started on Wednesday, giving us 5 reasons that someone should move to the iPhone 6, as well as just moving to iOS in general. Followed it up then on Thursday, I believe, or was it Friday, with some 5 reasons why not to switch to the iPhone 6 and some of the problems there. Cool. I think his favorite was he thinks that iOS is just boring in general. So he took the really hard stance where this is not something you want to work with at all. So you can see both sides of the picture with those 2 pieces from him. What else did we have? Oh, Joe is not convinced about the Moto 360. This is the smartwatch Michael, at least, had been looking forward to for the longest time. Joe doesn't like the idea of necessarily being a guinea pig for maybe the first round smartwatch, an early Android Wear model. He's kind of holding out to see where the whole platform goes in general, and especially he's waiting for Android L to come out and see how that changes the whole Android Wear smartwatch experience.
Bah! Balderdash. Balderdash, I say.
Not everyone's going to be of the same opinion on these things.
I got my system update for my 360 as soon as I clicked the link to join this podcast. So.
Nice.
Oh yeah, we talked about that the other day. It fixes a Bluetooth connectivity and some other some little things, but it's good to have.
Before you finish up, Stephen, I want to mention that Taylor's comparison that you just mentioned, I thought was the strangest friggin' thing ever, and it got as many views as so far as my Galaxy S5 comparison, I think.
The 6 Plus Oppo?
Yeah. So
it's a weird comparison, but
it is a strange comparison. But people are enjoying it apparently. And sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead and finish your roundup.
Let's see. Also on Wednesday, we had Taylor talking a little bit about Apple's launch of the 6 Plus. Maybe why Apple might have wanted to hold back. We certainly heard rumors that the 6 Plus was going to have a delayed launch compared to the 6. We ran a poll on this, asking what people thought. Number 1 answer. They don't care what Apple does as far as releasing phones, if and when they do. They can deal with the stock shortages. But the second place was, Apple knew it wouldn't have enough stock and probably should have held back. So differences of opinions there. We also got the first of our iPhone 6 camera samples. Taylor shot a bunch of 6 Plus stuff, showing normal shots, HDR, even some video with slow-mo. Oh, and of course, low-light performance, seeing what the 6 Plus and its optical stabilization can do. And Michael followed up the next day with his iPhone 6 camera samples. Also some more video from him there. So look at both of those to see how the cameras between the 2 new iPhones compare.
Girl, you know it's true.
Ooh. Joe had something to say about the ongoing OnePlus saga. I think the latest example of OnePlus's many struggles in the One's launch happened last week when we heard about the cancellation of the style swap covers. Joe talks about all of the places where OnePlus has kind of struggled over the past few months, and wonders, is there much goodwill left, and are people going to treat the company with such kind expectations as they did this year for its inaugural phone when the OnePlus 2 does come out? Let's see. Today we have a few new things. We mentioned earlier Adam Lane's piece about the one-handed mode and reachability on the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus, and he is not loving this. Like you mentioned before, he kind of feels like it's a cop-out, and then Apple, instead of designing a UI with the intent purpose of being easy to use one-handed, they're just trying to shoehorn an old design into a new form factor. Bound to cause controversy. You've heard our opinions on it, so read that up to get Adam's full thoughts. And finally, one new one from Joe talking about the next gen in battery tech. This idea of a lithium-sulfur chemistry as opposed to the lithium-ion, lithium polymer stuff we have now, and what that can mean for longer battery life in phones, faster charging, higher capacity, all the things we've been begging for the longest time. So if you're into technical advancements for phones, you'll want to check that one out. And that's it for the features and editorials for the past week here. So plenty to read up, a lot of Apple stuff, but also some Android and even a little Windows in there. So good selection for all of you.
I think we all know what a sulfur battery would mean.
Stinky battery?
Smelly phones, yes, sir.
I
yes,
like
sir.
the smell of thiols.
The new Sony Low Tide A+. I think we have to hit up the listener mail block here. It's strange. I have to say it's so disconcerting to not see Taylor, to not see his face, because I know he's just clicking around doing other stuff.
Yeah, like it makes me feel it's so much more difficult to pay attention because I know nobody can see what I'm doing.
I had this problem when we were doing the audio-only podcast. I was staring out the window at my neighbor's chickens, and you guys are talking about phones. This is
see, I prefer that actually because I hate the auto camera switching is great in Hangouts, but I hate when the camera is on me because I'm always cognizant of it. So that's why you'll see me do it's not right now, so I'm just faking it. But typically as what is it? A word choice. Word choice. Very difficult when the camera's on. I hate that. Hate that. Why can't we be in a studio? Hey, listener mail time. Jules, sound the bong bong. Thank you, friend. And I think that it is time for Taylor to read one, but we didn't forward them to him, so it's time for me to read one. Well, Taylor, we didn't know you were going to be on the show. I'm sorry. You'll help us answer the jailbreak one, though, which is probably our most relevant one. This is from Jami Vahaho. I'm sure I said that wrong. Hello, dear Pocketnow. Could you share some of your favorite jailbreak tweaks with us and maybe inform people a little bit about jailbreaking in general? Also, great work on the podcast channel in general. Thank you, Jamie, with the exception of today is your unwritten portion. But I would still want to get some more jailbreak content like we got with iOS 6 and evasion. I don't know anything about this, so you're not going to get any of this from me anytime in the future anytime in the near future because I just have never jailbroken an iPhone of my own. But Taylor apparently has and took umbrage at the fact that we thought he hadn't. So take it away, TM.
Well, the problem is that I didn't know the full question and that I haven't jailbroken in maybe a year and a half.
Nice.
There's some less of a reason to lately. People have been saying iOS giving more custom options.
Right. Like I haven't had a reason to jailbreak. That's why I haven't. The biggest reason to jailbreak now is for icons and being able to fix that problem you had, Michael, with iOS, the home screen layout, where you can put an icon wherever you want, not the top to bottom, left to right justification.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, you can do that with jailbreaking, and it works really well. It's just, is it worth going through all that trouble? For an update that you might download and kill your jailbreak later on,
Right. I was witness to a jailbreak. I helped with one once years ago, and
You just had to keep the car running out front.
Yeah, I was the escape guy. I remember being taken with all the possibilities, and if you really wanted to put the work in, just like what we talked about earlier in the sponsor spot, if you wanted to put the work in, then you could make it beautiful, but there was nothing really like Themer where it would just kind of instantly skin everything. But
Isn't that true for Android custom ROMs as well?
It is. No, it totally is. But the point is that I was disappointed in the performance sacrifice you made. When the iPhone is shipping with stock software, particularly when it's new, it's the smoothest phone you can buy, I think. And when you jailbreak it, what a turd it turns into, at least the time that I saw. So.
I didn't notice that, but because one of the coolest things you could do with jailbreak is remove all the animations. So, the folder expansion notification, the animation.
You just touch and boom, 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 things happen.
Yeah, there's no animations whatsoever. It speeds it up so fast. I mean, it's incredible how much faster your iPhone is if you kill all those animations.
Nah,
so,
I want more animations. I want each app to arrive as a balloon.
You want it to look like a 90s hacker movie.
I actually do. Yeah. I want all the code in OCR-A font. I want every bit of text to scroll slowly across a black screen in green text. That's what I want. That's the skin I would use.
Yeah, I snap my fingers for every animation. They're too slow. So, butter turd, What you're laughing at?
Yeah. Anyway, okay. So the reason that we don't emphasize jailbreaking so much is because it's less necessary these days, and I think a lot of the customization work has moved to Android as Android has become more popular also in the intervening time. You know.
I feel like we're also talking less about Android custom ROMs these days, though.
I would agree with that, but I think it's an effect of having fewer phones on the market, because you look back at 2010 when it was such a big thing. The software was so bad on Android.
Custom ROMs more popular because there's fewer devices to maintain them for.
No. There were so many devices, and the software was so bad that.
I see.
Yeah. So OEMs were terrible at optimizing the software for all these phones. They just pumped them out like candy, and then you get one, and I remember the Thunderbolt was the worst phone I've ever bought. The first LTE phone on Verizon.
Yeah.
It was a butter turd. I don't really know what that means, but that's what it was.
Doesn't sound good.
It doesn't sound like something you want.
And I just tried ROM after ROM after ROM just to try to make it better.
Usable.
And that never worked because HTC held on to its I don't remember what it is.
Yeah, Taylor, I don't think that it's a function of fewer phones. I think it's a function of stock Android being much better these days.
I think it's both.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah.
This is the point. This is what you were driving at a little bit. But yeah, like the old manufacturer skins were total shit. Android itself was gross as hell. Yeah, so like, I mean, you needed to tweak a lot of the stuff to make the damn things usable if you cared about usability. Nowadays, both Android and iOS are significantly better. So I think that partially explains our reduced coverage. Nothing can explain the fact that we just went past the 2-hour mark and need to move on.
Yeah, we went past 2 hours a while ago.
Yeah, this sucks. I'm actually.
I've only been here for like an hour, so.
Yeah, I don't know what you guys.
Brandon is damn verbosity.
God damn it, Brandon. From Sahen Rai, hi Pocket Hankies. That is not going to be our new nickname. Anyone. I know, you guys like brief questions, so I'll keep mine as such. What was your favorite commercial failure?
Palm.
Oh.
Brandon came on the air with a Palm Pixie earlier, Taylor. You missed it.
Yeah.
I saw his Twitter picture.
Yeah, it was awesome. So Palm was your favorite commercial failure?
Yeah. Do you not remember those from the original Palm OS?
Oh, you mean like the Garnet stuff?
Oh.
Do I not remember them?
Not Palm OS, I'm sorry, pre.
Are you talking about
WebOS? Okay, WebOS.
Yeah, WebOS.
Do I not remember? I only mention them every podcast episode. It's only my favorite smartphone of all time.
Right. So those commercials were the most awkward, disorienting thing.
Oh, you mean commercial like an advertisement?
No. We're talking just the phone itself.
But what are we talking
about?
On
the market. Are we?
We don't know. The email says, "What was your favorite commercial failure?" Now, I took that to mean
failure.
I was reading it as in like commercials.
No, I don't.
Commercial failure.
I don't know. It's an open question. We don't know what this mail.
No, that's not what that means.
I stand by my original answer, and then I'll add and say.
I like
commercial is an adjective here.
It might be, but actually, I kind of like Taylor's interpretation of it because that's much more fun.
It is much more fun.
Yeah,
but if we're going to talk about the biggest commercial.
No. Sahen Rai, I am sorry if this was not your intent, but we're going to talk about awful ads for a second. Good call.
I don't have an answer to that.
That's okay. Taylor and I have plenty. We won't talk about it forever, though. But Taylor, explain to everyone what the Palm ads were back in the day.
Yeah, it was just. I don't remember. I only remember them vaguely, but I remember this woman holding a Palm Pre, and I don't even remember how awkward it is. I have to look it up. That's the only thing I can do.
Let me tell you. So she was a beautiful, beautiful woman, a great actress too. They hired her for these commercials, and she was given these scripts that were the most esoteric, bizarre things ever. She's holding a Palm Pre, and she's like, they're showing maps on the Pre, and she's like, "Do you ever have one of those days where everything just falls into place? And green lights, red lights turn to green, and everything just goes better. Bing."
I just did a YouTube search. I haven't watched these yet. Looking at the thumbnails of the commercials, they look terrifying.
Oh, they're horrifying. They called her the Borg Queen in the message boards back in the day, And like it got even creepier because the commercials didn't get better over time; they got weirder. And at one point, one of them in particular, there was no dialogue for like the first 10 seconds of the commercial. It just opened up with her holding the pre, facing away from the camera, and then like 2 seconds after the commercial started, she just whipped her head around and stared at you. 3 seconds. It was the creepiest ad campaign ever.
Yeah, the first one that came up when I searched it was, "My phone can read my mind."
Oh yeah.
At first it freaked me out, but then it started doing things before I actually wanted it to, or something like that. Like,
And then it led me to the shower in the middle of the night, and then I got out the knives. Yeah, there she is.
and she cuts her eyes to the side and says, "Does it know you're crazy?" Well, of course it does.
Oh God, yeah.
We know that you're crazy.
Tamara Hope. It's not her fault. She did what she could with this bizarro dialogue. God, these commercials were terrible. Look up Palm Pre-ad, and you can understand at least part of the reason WebOS didn't do so well in the first ever. Oh God. Anyway, that's great. Mine is the HTC Rhyme commercials, which the HTC Rhyme was the Verizon exclusive that was like the purple Android phone for women. I'm putting the big quotes in.
It had a thingy on it, didn't it?
Yes,
Charm.
The Charm. That's what it was. And Jeff, I was talking to Jeff Gordon at HTC about old HTC products, and he was like, he was trying to tell me, oh yeah, the Rhyme with the Charm, and I'm like, the Charm? What are you talking about? I didn't remember what it was actually called because very shortly after its launch, Josh Topolsky at I think then Engadget popularized the slang of calling it the tentacle. It was meant to be this thing that like snaked out of your purse and it had a little
light up when you had
on the end.
Or something.
Yeah, it was like it was a portable notification light. It was a wired notification light, which I thought it was pretty cool. But well, anyway, the commercials for the HTC Rhyme were, at least one of them was a woman who actually sort of looked like Tamara Hope, as I recall, who had 8 arms, each of which had a phone. And yeah, Jules has helpfully brought this up for us. Oh God, it's scary. She only had 4 arms in this capture. I don't know. It was like an octopus woman, and she was doing a lot of things at once with all her arms.
I remember her.
You only have 2 arms. You should use the HTC Rhyme.
She was in Mortal Kombat.
Was she?
Goro!
Oh yeah. Oh God. And then yes, thank you so much, Skorask. I don't know if that's how it's pronounced. In the Q&A is saying, what about the Sprint Framley commercials?
Oh my God, those are horrible. They're gone.
What a heinous campaign.
So glad they're gone.
Oh, me too. It was just miserable. So, okay, yeah. We could talk about bad commercials for a long time. You know, we ran a spot on Pocketnow a long time ago called the 10 best or funniest mobile commercials. I put that together one Friday, and I think that was pretty popular, so might do that again.
We do the worst of them.
The worst, yeah. Well, I'm really glad. Sahen Rai, I am sorry if we misinterpreted your intent with your question, but thank you for providing us with some needed laughs at the end of this thing. Microsoft can read my mind. Wait, Stephen, I'm sorry. I thought you said you didn't have an answer.
Well, not for the commercial. That's my favorite phone failure, which is what he meant to ask, or did ask, and we're just going off on a tangent here. But Jesus Christ, that thing failed in a minute. And the whole point was this awesome cloud service that then got shut down like 8 months later. It could not have failed more spectacularly.
Yeah, it was brutal.
But it might not count as a smartphone, so I don't know.
Mine so far, and this is a little premature, but probably not, is the Fire Phone, the Amazon Fire Phone. If we're
ouch.
Touchpad.
Huh?
Oh.
HP the HP touchpad?
I'm still sore I never got one of them.
That's really sad. I don't want to talk about WebOS. It's so sad.
I could go touchpad, or I could go Kyocera Echo.
Yeah, that thing was awesome.
That thing deserved to fail.
They had to ship it with 2 phones because the battery life was so bad. Or not
2 batteries.
2 batteries because the battery life was so bad.
If they shipped it with 2 phones, it would make it worse.
Because one's going to break on you because of that hinge.
Yeah. The hinge was the best part about it. This is from Jack McKenzie. It's the last piece of listener mail on the show. I hope you guys gloat about how incredibly accurately you predicted #Bendgate, #Bendghazi. Just listened to last week's show on my commute, and I nearly soiled myself. I see a Peabody in your future. Sincerely, Jack McKenzie. Jack, thank you As I mentioned earlier, I don't remember what the hell we talk about from week to week. So what did we predict Bendgate? What's the story?
I don't know, but
I think I mentioned it being too thin.
Okay.
That's all I really said, because Jaime was on and we were talking about how we would prefer phones being a little thicker so they had bigger batteries, but I don't recall ever saying that it would bend. We might have casually mentioned something, but I don't know if I'd credit.
I'm willing to take credit.
Bendgate.
Yeah, no, I mean,
You took Bendgate for AntennaGate too.
Yeah, Steven, you came up with AntennaGate. By the way, let's resolve something on the air real quick. Did we? Did you come up with the term unboxing, Steven?
No, Jesus, that's been around forever.
Yeah, well, I know, but I thought you did, or I thought somebody did. Jaime, every time we have Jaime on the air.
That was around before I even got into the industry.
Actually, every time. Oh, it was? Okay. Because every time Jaime and I talk, he's like, hey, we invented this thing. And I'm like, wait, what are you talking about? We invented smartphones. What?
No.
Okay. Thank you. Good. I'm glad that if anybody knows where the term unboxing was first used, that would be actually kind of a fun research project. So find out. Hey, have you guys ever bought a phone for one feature, either hardware or software based? This is not a piece of listener mail from Jeff Martinez. It's the most upvoted Q&A question. Bought a phone for one feature, either hardware or software. I'm going to spend the cash, says Jeff, on the Z3 solely for the PS4 remote play feature. Let me know. You guys kick ass, by the way. Thanks, Jeff.
Real quick, Wikipedia mentions unboxing first showed up on Google Trends in the last quarter of 2006.
Last quarter of 2006.
Been around since before the iPhone.
Seems like an Engadget thing. It seems like, but I don't know. Somebody, how many of us said we? I don't know.
I can answer for Josh Vergara because he's gonna get that tablet Z compact.
For what? For what? For one
the
feature?
PS4 feature.
Oh, for the same reason.
Same reason, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
You brought that up all the time in Germany, so.
Yeah. I bought a device for one feature. I mean.
I have. I bought several. Lumia 1020 I bought for the camera.
Okay.
Yeah, I bought Thunderbolt. Yeah. I bought the Thunderbolt simply for LTE.
Okay. Yeah.
Which it did good with that. The first day I got like 40-some megabits per second down.
Yeah.
Really nice, and then everybody else bought one.
Yeah, that was the problem, yeah.
Yeah. And I can say I bought this iPhone 6 Plus just because it's bigger. I mean,
oh,
that's the only reason I bought it. Is because it's an iPhone, it's just bigger.
Yeah, I don't think I have bought one like on just one thing. It's always been a confluence of factors that have led me to
the fact that no one else has one.
Yeah, that's usually a big one.
That's the definition of a hipster.
No, it's not. Only if you improperly understand hipster culture.
No, it's not cool when everybody else has one, right?
Yeah, no, that's the lazy definition of hipsterism. That's what people think. It's the same. We're not going to get into
that. Being lazy to an extent.
What's that?
Isn't the whole hipster thing about being lazy to an extent and not trying too hard?
No.
Or just giving the impression that you don't try too hard, or you actually do.
I like that.
It's an elusive thing. No one actually knows what it is.
Yeah, it's like emo back in the day. Like you couldn't really define emo. It's just it's like if you didn't like someone. The emo. Yeah, no. There's a musical style too, like sort of, and also the relationship between ska and emo.
I feel like there's a South Park episode about this.
Nebulous thing, probably so.
I feel like we sound like old people talking about MySpace back in.
The youngsters today and the Friendster, I do not understand.
Hello. Why is it so different?
They got them really deep cut V-necks and tight pants.
Don't like people exposing their posteriors to the middle of the night. For people who are used to wireless charging, is no wireless charging on the Moto X a deal breaker? Asks Hiwa Habibi. It sucks. It sucks to have a phone that is awesome, except that it doesn't have wireless charging, and then to pair it to a watch that is sort of less awesome, but has wireless charging.
Are any of us really used to wireless charging? I mean, I don't use it, but I feel like even you guys who do have so many other devices that it's not a regular thing. You're always just maybe using it, maybe not.
Just out of the frame is a Tilt View wireless charger, the best looking wireless charger, which is currently upside down with its wire going somewhere it's not plugged in because because none of the new phones that I'm trying to have a good time with have wireless charging built in. F that.
Hey, wasn't Apple supposed to deliver wireless charging with the iPhone 6 and it was gonna? Wasn't that?
Yeah.
And we're gonna start using Power Mat as a result because it was gonna, and Starbucks was gonna force us to start using the Apple standard.
Oh, right. Yeah, no. It's not a deal breaker, but it does suck. It still
Yeah,
sucks as much as
if
it
I
does.
had my preference, every phone would come with Qi charging,
Mhm.
but it's not a deal breaker ever because it's such
Because it
a
can't be
hit
a
or
deal.
miss feature.
Because
Right.
micro USB is really easy to charge with anyway.
No,
I think the biggest
bump
issue
that.
is that not every
So
phone
mad.
works with every Qi charger. And that what I mean by that is size. Like that Zen's car charger that they sent me.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
your
yeah,
phone
yeah.
is too
It's got
big,
a
like this
slot.
iPhone 6 Plus won't fit in that slot.
Oh, is that the cup holder one?
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to give a shout out to Dex Eve, and it's the last Q&A I'll hit. I'm watching the Pocketnow Weekly live from Australia
Ooh.
at 4:04 a.m. now.
Go to sleep.
Sleep is for the weak.
Actually, don't go to sleep. Go to sleep after this.
Gentlemen, thank you for your time today. This has been a wandering bus of a podcast, yet I think we've had a little bit of fun. Don't you?
Yeah. And I've been happy not showing my face.
Special shout out.
Taylor's eating a plate of barbecue ribs and he's covered in sauce right now, but we can't tell.
Speaking of thanks, I want to thank Jules especially for putting up with a really, really strange show on very short notice. And I want to make a note also that if you liked this podcast, but if you thought that if only it could be a bit shorter and much more anchored in hilarious cynicism, then yeah, first of all, play our show at double speed. Second of all, you should probably try The Voicemail by James Watley and Stefan Constantinescu, thevoicemail.net. There's a much shorter podcast, but it is they're very well-informed guys. One of them has a delightful accent, and it's just a great time. Check it out. They don't pay us to say that, but they are friends of the show, and I do like their show quite a bit.
And they can't remember my name.
Also a good point.
You like anybody who can't remember my name. Also, every time you do that setup, I'm like, he's going to plug Untethered. Nope.
Hey up!
If you like podcasts about nothing that wander into the weeds 6 seconds after they start, try the Untethered podcast.
Best with a large beer or glass of some sort of liquor in your hand.
Just with a mind-altering substance.
Paper bag full of spray paint, whatever's your...
Whatever works. Some old fragrant highlighters from your
Whatever like dumbs the brain cells, kills a few in the process, it will probably help you enjoy my podcast a little more.
I would agree. No, it's a good time. Untethered. It's a fun time. A note on music, listeners. Our transition track is called Radiation. It's a ringtone you might recognize from some Android smartphones. It's also a full-length song by Ali Spagnola, who stopped by the Pocketnow Weekly once for an interview, and maybe she should come by again. But we don't talk mobile. We just talk
saying
awesome.
That so she does.
I know. You should be a fan of hers. She's very awesome. Visit her YouTube channel, youtube.com/AliSpags. Her website, alispagnola.com. Both of them linked in the description below. Gentlemen, we have work to do and a weekend to hit, so that's going to do it for this episode of the Pocketnow Weekly, which is ably produced by Jules Wong, a.k.a. Green.0 on Twitter. Find Stephen Shank on Twitter. He's been tweeting more often, and it makes me proud. Stephen Shank, StephenSchencK. Taylor Martin is at Caspertech, Caspertek. He mainly tweets about Untethered and working too many hours for his preferences, and I feel you, brother. Caspertech. Find me on Twitter as well, Captain 2 Phones. It's Captain, the number 2 Phones. I talk about a lot of stuff, mainly it's Star Trek and smartphones, so if that blows your skirt up, you will like my Twitter feed. And follow Pocketnow on Instagram, Facebook, Google+, everywhere else social media is a thing. And leave us a review, finally. If you would like, if you enjoy our show, it helps us get discovered. Leave us a review on iTunes, Xbox Music, anywhere else reviews are left. Till next time, this has been Michael Fisher reminding you that I often forget to write this outro script. We'll see you next time.
#Northern. Yes.
That ain't a thing. That ain't a thing you should do. That ain't cool.